Two. Hello. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. What is up? Good afternoon. It is 1:30 a.m. This show comes on every day, usually 1 a.m. Today, 1:30. 1:30 a.m. Pyongyang time. We're the official time zone of TRRS, the Rob Rousseau Show. 1:30 a.m. sharp. We're logging on. DPRK time, that's right. Each and every day. And in fact, this is just one way that all of us, every single day we wake up should be asking ourselves, what can we do today to uphold the principles of Juche? What can we do today to uphold the Democratic People's Republic of Korea? My one little act of reverence and respect is to always be organizing my life, organizing the schedule of this show alongside on Pyongyang time. And TJ Borg cleaned his toilet, so we're just a whole lot of winning all around going on right now. Just give me a moment here. Just very quickly on the way downstairs. Threw together a little salad. Munch on. Listening in from the long road, the long haul. Hell yeah, Doc. I'm glad we can accompany you on this journey. How are you chatting? Don't chat and drive. Oh, we munchin'. I just made a really quick salad. You know, it's like that pre-packet. You can get that pre-packaged grilled chicken. Threw that in with some lettuce and some tomatoes and cucumbers and some dressing. Really quick. It's not the best getting that pre-packaged chicken, but it's good for those when you just need something on the go, you know? You folks know me, busy. Always hustling, always grinding. Right, every single day I'm pulling my bootstraps up, building my small business. I don't have time to make these big extravagant meals. And I got this nice cilantro avocado dressing on that. I had cottage cheese for dinner. That's how we operate. We're on the go. We're on the move. We're on the Sigma grind set. I just realized that you can lecture people from an economic standpoint and start with look, I'm a small business owner. That's right. I'm the proprietor of a burgeoning media empire. Okay? I'm a small business owner. Sorry. A lot of dead air here. A lot of dead air here. The lunch section. I would like to say that I was running behind because I was doing something important today, but I really wasn't. I was playing... Well, it was important. I was playing Fortnite with Marcus from Left Flank Vets and Bleep Blomp Ben. That's mostly what was holding me up. And we didn't even get a win. But it was fun. I enjoy gaming with those folks. Got a little gaming crew. That's not important, Rob, but go off. Then text says that's a good reason. So I don't know what to believe. I just don't know what to believe. The goof off king. I'm gonna crack open my Diet Coke as well. I got a lot of stuff to look at today.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Have some bits.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the 200 friend coin. I appreciate that. Chin chin, everyone. I really need to get some more energy drinks. I'm really blowing it. Okay. Now we're rolling. Now we're rolling here. Okay. Yeah, bunch of stuff to talk about today. I was slacking off a little bit earlier, but I did do a small amount of research and have a bunch of tweets and stuff to look at. A whole bunch of stuff. And maybe we have Camilla coming on today. I'm not sure. We never really confirmed. Maybe we got Camilla from Kausachin News coming on. Maybe. Is it just me or does food cost like 10 times as much as it did 2 months ago? I haven't noticed too much, human person. The last time I went to the grocery store, it didn't feel like severe. The gas is outrageous though. The gas right now in Montreal is $2.20, which is far and away the highest I've ever seen it in my life. Excuse me. I remember when I was a petroleum dispersal technician at the Olco gas station in Brockville, Ontario, where I grew up. I remember the highest that I ever saw it. This was in around 2000, 2001. And I remember the highest it ever was at that time was 66.6. 66.6 cents. Because I was like, ooh, it's the devil number. Ooh, 66.6. And it's now, twice as much as that. It's about $8 Canadian a gallon. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's really ludicrous. Can't really tell if it's just me. Never really paid attention to the price of things. Just feels like more. Yeah, human person. I know what you mean. I don't really take the time to look at individual products. I just go by my trip to the grocery store. Did I get $100 worth of stuff? Did I get $200 worth? I don't know, as that Dem representative said the other day, if you don't like gas prices, just simply buy an electric car. Just buy a $60,000 car, dummy. What's the matter with you? Or you're still paying for gas like a sucker. Just simply buy a $60,000 automobile. What's the matter with you? Don't you know how to invest? It's amazing too how much of it is just the oil just price gouging, just openly price gouging. And remember when the Ukraine war kicked off? Remember we watched the Biden address when all that kicked off? And he's like, now I trust our oil company CEOs to do the right thing here. Yeah, how did that go? How's that working out? Are our altruistic, patriotic oil company CEOs doing the right thing? It seems like they're just taking advantage of an opportunity to drastically increase their profits. (2022) Q1 profits. ExxonMobil, 100%, 5,480,000,000, 100% increase compared to 2021 Q1. BP, 6,200,000,000, highest quarterly profit in a decade. Chevron, 6,260,000,000, a 400% increase compared to 2021. Damn, why is gas so expensive? Yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's because of the magic inflation, which is just this law of science that just happens. When you spend too much money on like schools and healthcare and, you know, giving people unemployment benefits, this magic thing happens. No one really, it's too complicated to really explain it to everyone. But when you spend too much on, you know, like improving people's lives, this magical phenomenon happens when magically things just start to cost more. And there's no cause. It's just this thing that just happens. And there's no, don't even look into it. It's so complicated you'd never understand it. It's just this magic, it's like a scientific principle. We gotta tighten our belts. That's it. The mystical magic market has decreed it so, and that's who are we to say, to complain about that? You know? Who do we think we are? What's up, robbers? Hello, Red Scary. Welcome. There's some wild charts in the Finance Sickos channel of the Discord, by the way. There's some wild charts. We are really on the verge of something fucking horrendous. Especially America. I really don't want to sugarcoat this. All the stuff about DHS operating within 100 miles of the border in basically every like liberal urban center, every coastal liberal urban center now. Upcoming economic collapse, upcoming return to power of these extreme right-wing reactionaries who have this like bloodthirsty agenda targeting women, targeting LGBTQ people. There's a lot of really gruesome signs for some real scary stuff on the horizon. 2/3 of Americans live within 100 miles of the border. I mean, I was just talking about this today. How it's frustrating how that's a lot of what the Bernie campaign was about, right? It wasn't just about giving people health care. It wasn't just about like the student debt. It was really about a possible alternative for America that could maybe avoid that path that it's on right this moment. You know, there's kind of one opportunity here to act decisively and prevent the coming rise of explicit fascism coming to the society. And every single establishment neoliberal threw their fucking bodies on the tracks to ensure that Joseph Biden would win. And as we were all saying, as every single person that was following this was saying, it's the exact wrong person for the exact moment in American history where you don't need that approach. Everyone said this, and it's just been this slow motion process of being proved 100% correct over everything that everybody was saying about Joe Biden throughout the whole year and a half leading up to the election. Is absolutely not passed like even any of the low bars that were there to have kind of a modest improvement or potentially avoid the coming fucking disaster. But the Bernie Bros were mean to me. They posted snake emojis. I don't know, folks. And okay, so listen, we can just get right into one day I will settle on a title for this segment where we look at a bunch of different news stories. Sometimes it's, for a while I was going with the dang news. Sometimes it's the discourse zone. Sometimes it's the chit chat zone. Sometimes it's the group chat. I've never come up with an actual like fucking name for this damn segment, but one day we will. I'm going to try this one, the damn news. And I'm going to go right into the politics tab right away. Let's fucking do this. We're going into the politics tab. Get ready. Hold your formation. We've had some, Marina, I don't know how much you've been around. We've had some wild shit going on in the chat. In the politics tab lately. We've had some real fucking wackos and weirdos dropping by. Say all kinds of stuff. Okay, so listen though. Here's the first thing there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about. We're also going to focus on the Summit of the Americas stuff and the Paul Mason stuff. Because we often talk about Bellingcat and there's information about Bellingcat in those Paul Mason leaks. And I want to keep focusing on that because I know that there's people that kind of have framed, that have tried to kind of defend Bellingcat from these kind of accusations. And I think we gotta continue exploring that. I want to see where the chat is at with this question, okay? I want to see where the chat is at with this question. This piece in Jacobin. It came out the other day called Bernie Sanders Should Run for President a Third Time. I tried to talk about the Balkans once and it was immediately like, you're a less evolved mud-eating Slav. Like, yeah, no thanks, babe. Yeah, that sounds great. Because in the previous election cycle in the US, like in the Trump era, I was one of the people saying like, yeah, Bernie has to run again in 2020. And there was people saying like, oh, he's too old. You know, it should be someone else. It should be Beto. It should be Kristen Gillibrand. It should be Kamala. There was people that in the Trump era still thought that that was maybe a possibility. And then slowly everyone came around to this idea. And of course, that's what that turned into the Bernie movement. I don't feel the same way in 2020. Like, I just feel like the campaign happened. We all saw what happened. We saw Bernie bow out and kind of back the establishment, which he was kind of like rallying against. And we've seen the result, how it's just led to like nothing. And all the stuff about, well, Biden could win, but Bernie's going to be the budget chairman, and he's going to have a lot of say into the economic agenda and the Build Back Better agenda and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, all that happened. He did the right thing. He backed out. He endorsed Biden. He backed them every step of the way. He got his position as the budget chairman. He did indeed have a big public face in selling this agenda in the media and being a vocal proponent for this kind of bold economic agenda. All that stuff did happen. And then what was the result of that? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And as I was saying, all the issues with Biden that everyone pointed out for months and months and months and months all exactly happened the exact way that everyone was saying it was going to. So, number one, if Biden runs again, and if there's no other option, Biden will run again. Like, if no one else, they're going to go with Biden over going with Kamala or Pete or any of these other who just don't stand a fucking chance. And I just don't think Bernie would, even at that age, actually run against Biden in a primary. They could just let him win this time and blame him for everything that happens after. That would be another possible scenario as well. You just got to wait for the political churn any minute now. So I'm not one of the people, as I was during the Trump era, that's like super on board with this idea. I was very gung-ho about this, and in fact I leaned into a sort of position as being one of the most vocal like Bernie Sanders people on social media. That was kind of like, I recognized early on in that process that was kind of an option for me, and I said, yeah, I'm just going to lean into this. I really think this is the only possibility for anything ever getting better in America, and it's kind of a very limited window. So I don't have that same attitude moving into this. However, while I don't think that there's much of an opportunity for Bernie to actually do that, or even that it's a possibility, I do think it would be funny. And just first and foremost, before everything else, it would be a funny outcome, which would make a lot of people mad. And just on that level, I would kind of support it. I do think Bernie is now too old at this point. There is no one else. There's no one else that's going to replace him, certainly. There's no one else the younger in the Democratic Party that has any possibility of reaching all the same kind of groups and reaching these kind of independents and speaking to people like Bernie. No, there's no one. There's no one that's going to be doing that. It would be a very funny outcome that would make a lot of people really mad. On that level, I would support it. I'm definitely someone that I have moved on from standing Bernie Sanders or any American or Canadian progressive politician. I think I spent my time doing that online, and now I've moved on from that a little bit. If it did happen again, I think it would be an interesting outcome. I would be happily reporting on it. I would hope that he would have some kind of impact. I don't have a lot of confidence that he would, but it would be, I think, at the very least, taking everything else away, a funny outcome that many people would get really mad at. And I think I would kind of enjoy watching that play out more from afar than being in the middle of the mix of it. If he runs, they will hit him with the heart attack gun. Yeah. I'm having shoulder and neck pain. Would it be cured by TRRS merchandise? Eric, I'm going to say yes. I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to say yes. Maybe run as an independent if he has to run. There was time to do that. I think there was time to do that. And I think Bernie has shown that he doesn't have much interest in actually challenging the Democratic Party establishment. If he did, I think that would be great. But it doesn't seem like that's really in the cards for him. We're not allowed to give financial or medical advice since we're not experts. However, anecdotally, I feel great since Rob even placed the order for my TRRS gear. Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought that was maybe going to be a surprise, Lodane, but I guess you've seen that somehow using your elite hacker skills. Well, your stuff, it is coming in three separate orders, so let's keep that in mind. So if one thing comes without everything else, it's just there's more stuff coming. the Dem ticket is going to get absolutely cooked by 2024. Yeah, and like if Bernie was who we wanted him to be, I think that would be the only possibility for them not to get cooked. Despite being 84 or whatever he's going to be. I haven't seen shit. It was just a joke. Okay, well, Lodane, I ordered you merch. Surprise. Surprise to you. If I buy some TRRS merchandise, will it lead to the fall of the hot dog? I'm going to say yes. Yeah. It's the same story every time. Well, that's it. It's like, I think I would still support that Bernie run. I don't think I would have any illusions that it would have much of an impact. You know? I think 2020 was the year, and Bernie had the brass ring in sight. He had the brass ring in sight. He was reaching for it, and his fingers were brushing the brass ring, and he kind of blew it. Frankly, he kind of blew it. So I'm certainly would never get my hopes up that he's gonna do something in 2024 as an even older man, and do the thing that we all want him to do this time. I just don't really believe that. At this point, it's at best wishful, fantastical thinking. Yeah, and again, I think in terms of the content standpoint and the humor standpoint, that I think it would be funny to just watch it happen. If he was who he wanted them to be, he would have stayed in the primary and then run a write-in against Biden. Yeah. I mean, listen, I talked to David Sirota about this a couple weeks ago on the Insurgents podcast. David Sirota, who is Bernie's speechwriter. And it was pretty interesting to hear him talk about it, though, because there was that whole controversy in the campaign when Zephyr Teachout, who is one of the campaign surrogates, wrote an op-ed, I believe, in The Guardian, called Joe Biden's corruption problem. And everyone freaked out, and the media freaked out, and the Biden campaign freaked out, and everyone said, oh, how dare you say such a terrible thing about corruption. And rather than standing with his surrogates and actually going out and explaining what the article was and what the problem was, he backed down. He threw his surrogates, he threw Zephyr Teachout under the bus. I think he benched Sirota after that, because Sirota was one of the ones that was like, this is great. This is great. We want more of this. Sirota was the one in the campaign advocating that they do that they go directly at Biden and they try to take him down. That was always he always had to go through Biden to get the nomination. You had to attack him to do that. And that's what Sirota wanted. That's what other people in the campaign wanted. But ultimately, Bernie listened to the insiders and the ones that wanted him to be nice. And he literally, scored that big, landed a punch talking about that and then backed down from it. And the writing was on the wall then about exactly what he was going to do. What's the best case scenario for U.S. 2024 election? I'm honestly not sure. Probably the best case scenario is that there's still some kind of congressional gridlock that prevents the right from really instituting the really barbaric and nasty social policies that they seem to want to implement. But I mean, even the courts are deciding on Roe v. Wade, and the courts are deciding on all these things. All these conservative rulings are coming down, and there doesn't seem to be much that anyone can do electorally to stop that process. All that's going to have to take place outside the electoral system. The absolute best case scenario is that, it just becomes so chaotic that a cadre of left-wingers are somehow able to take control of the United States government and its institutions somehow. But I don't think that's really going to happen, ultimately. That's probably the best case scenario, but I think a pretty low likelihood of that, if I had to guess. Anyway, I do still kind of support the idea of Bernie running in 24. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Biden will run again. The only way that Biden won't run is if he's dead. Like if they forced him to run and win in 2020 when they wanted Buttigieg and they wanted Kamala Harris and they wanted Beto or someone younger, and none of them connected with anybody, and they got Biden out there on his fucking last legs, barely able to string a sentence together. If he's still standing in 2024, he's going to run. If they can keep the Queen alive, they can do it with Biden. Exactly, yeah. So I think if Biden is still standing, he's going to run. If not, maybe there would be a possibility for Bernie to run and win. And I think that would be an interesting outcome. But I wouldn't put too much hope in that, like, really making all that much of a difference in terms of, like, America's trajectory. Once again, something I would love to be wrong about. I would love for Bernie to run and win and somehow like avert this rise of these far right reactionaries and somehow roll this back. This like wave of reaction that seems to be sweeping the country. But like, listen, like, look no further than, if you want to know exactly how a Bernie Sanders presidency would be treated if he was trying to take these issues like the climate crisis or whatever seriously, look no further than what happened in San Francisco with the progressive San Francisco DA, Chesa Boudin, who just got recalled. Look what happens, or look what happened to Bernie in 2016 and 2020, excuse me. When you go through this process and elect progressive people that are trying to do things the right way and try to steer things in a more progressive direction in the right way and be through the electoral process and building consensus and going into communities and doing everything the way you're supposed to, they will attack you with everything they have. They will attack you nonstop with everything that they have until you're fucking gone. You saw it with Corbyn. You saw it to a certain extent in Sanders. You really saw it in this San Francisco primary with Chesa Boudin. Just someone who's like mildly trying to make the criminal justice system slightly less barbaric. And you have the whole political class and the media class comes together to tell this story about, you know, crime rates and how he's basically made crime legal. You know, it's a situation where neoliberalism has destroyed cities like San Francisco, like the whole homelessness crisis and whatever crime that exists in San Francisco is a direct result of the last 30 years of neoliberalization and gentrification and privatization that has directly led to all of the whatever chaos is going on in San Francisco now. And then you elect someone slightly more progressive to maybe make it maybe a little bit less barbaric, and the establishment in politics and media will come together and just absolutely destroy you. And that's exactly what they did to Chesa Boudin, and they did it to Jeremy Corbyn, and they kind of did it to Bernie, but Bernie played ball with the establishment basically and avoided that fate this last time. The next president will be whatever celebrity wants to run for president, either Matthew McConaughey or The Rock, and it will be like that forever because we live in hell. I mean, that's, as I've been saying also, it's like the only people that are ever going to win these elections and moving forward, I think, are people that are able to position themselves as political outsiders. You know, and you have like these lifelong career politicians trying to play that game, like Pierre Poilievre or whoever, or George Bush or Trump. You know, people always are able to position themselves as outside that system. So probably people that have money and people and fame and people recognize them. It'll probably be a lot more of that kind of stuff. Yeah. The NYT's reporting on San Francisco has been so bad. No, the media, the establishment media all across the country have come together to tell a certain narrative about San Francisco, which of course all these egregious, this horrible crisis, which of course is going to now be forgotten immediately. And even though now that you have the mildly progressive district attorney recalled, all these problems are still going to continue. But according to people that read the news, they're not continuing anymore because they won't hear about it anymore. Political outsider Joe Biden. That's right. Well, that's why all these lifelong politicians all have this like affect where they sound like, oh, your average Joe, your average Grandpa Joe. My dad loved to drive a car and that kind of stuff. You know, even though they're all like lifelong career politicians and rich people and lawyers. So I don't know. Do I want to read? Let's read some of this. Because again, I'm not going to stand Bernie Sanders or really get really in the mix with that. I still think it would be an interesting and certainly funny outcome, but I wouldn't put too much like. It's also an organizational standpoint too. If like whatever leftist organizing energy there is just all gets funneled into campaigns for the presidential election, then all that just dissipates afterwards. It would probably be a lot better for the energy and resources that would go into a Bernie campaign to go into like defending immigrant communities and defending trans and other LGBTQ people and defending abortion rights. It's probably would actually be a better use of everyone's time and energy and resources organizing on a grassroots level to protect these things, rather than putting all that energy into a presidential campaign again. Here's the article. This is by Branko Markitek in Jacobin. Multiple reports say Bernie Sanders hasn't ruled out another presidential campaign. He should go for it. Allow me for a moment to indulge my inner Tom Friedman. A few weeks back, I was exchanging the usual banter with a taxi driver, Amandeep, an Indian immigrant who had lived in New York for nearly 2 decades, when the conversation turned to politics. After telling me about the racist and sexist treatment she sometimes gets from passengers, Amandeep bluntly told me how little she thought of President Joe Biden, and how much she missed Donald Trump. Biden, in her view, had done nothing for the people, and whereas inflation was currently burning a hole through her and everyone else's wallets, things had been good under Trump. It wasn't just the stronger economy. Amandeep remembered the stimulus checks she'd gotten from Trump, checks that, at least as she remembered it, stopped coming once Biden came into office. But didn't Trump often say things that were rude and offensive? At least Biden is, in the eyes of many, a decent man. Trump talked too much, she replied, but he did things for the people. It would be easier to write this off as the thoughts of a single eccentric voter if there weren't so much data pointing in a similar direction. Biden is in trouble. And by the way, Biden's approval rating is almost at the level that Trump's was following January 6th. Like, it's truly a disaster. And there's reports coming out about the Biden administration all looking around at each other going, what is this? What's going on? And they have no idea. They have no idea why this is happening to them. At the Real Clear Politics polling aggregator, Trump outpolls the president in 10 of the 15 polls since January. It's a similar picture to the polls compiled by 538, where Trump also regularly beats Vice President Kamala Harris. There are multiple polls showing that even Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters prefer the party to pick someone else to run in 2024. The party as a whole is toxically unpopular, with a 19-point approval rating. Is that a minus 19 point? A minus 19-point approval rating. Didn't even realize that was possible. Lower than both Biden and Trump, with even recipients of the party's signature child tax credit policy now favoring Republicans. Well, that's what happens when you write a historic signature child tax credit policy and then you just let it expire and you don't renew it. They literally brag. They passed that child tax credit. They bragged endlessly about how that giving these families money cuts into childhood poverty, as it does. They bragged endlessly about cutting into childhood poverty, significantly reducing it, and then it just expires, and this tax credit goes away, and lo and behold, you have the Democratic Party holding the fucking bag, as families are literally forced to pay more again under them, and they don't continue this popular policy. And you increase childhood poverty as a result. Yeah, lo and behold, these people don't care about the fucking Democrats. Anyone grounded to reality saw Biden was going to do nothing and then lose it all. That's the frustrating thing. Again, litigating all the Democratic Party primary stuff. But that's what every fucking me and every single person, all of you, everyone that was paying attention to that race, we all knew exactly what was going to happen. We told these fucking losers in the Democratic Party time and time again exactly how it was going to play out. And they all yelled at us and screamed at us and called us Russian assets or Bernie bros or whatever the fuck. And everything is happening exactly as the lowliest, weird Twitter freak has said was going to happen. It's so annoying. And let's just get to the article here. We don't need to discuss it much longer after this, but I wanted to get your folks' takes on this. The fire is burning. In April, a memo surfaced from former Sanders campaign manager Faiz Shakir, who was, by the way, one of the ones that was encouraging them on the inside of the campaign to play nice with the establishment. He was one of the ones that argued against going against the Democratic Party establishment and attacking Biden directly, telling allies that in the event of an open 2024 Democratic presidential primary, Senator Sanders has not ruled out another run for president. A few weeks later, NBC reported that, according to Sanders' team, his campaign fires are burning hot. In an ideal world, Sanders would be in position to challenge Biden for the nomination regardless of whether or not the president runs again. Once again, it's not going to happen. Bernie's not going to run against Biden, and as long as Biden is still walking at that point, he's going to run again. But if Biden chooses to step down after one term, Senator Sanders absolutely must make one final run for president. And it goes into all the reasons he's the most popular active politician. Yada, yada, yada. I don't know. As I said, I'm not someone... My days of standing people in the United States government, I think, are behind me now. I spent my time doing that. I've seen the result. My days of really supporting people that are part of this political system, I think, are behind me. Whether it's Bernie or any of these other progressive Democrats that are now part of the party, even though they might still sometimes do some good things. However, I do think that this would be just a funny result. It would be funny if this did happen. I wouldn't put a lot of faith or energy into getting my hopes up about that being successful. Again, we've seen what the establishment will do to anyone that comes close to challenging these power structures. And if the exact things broke in the exact right way, and Biden didn't run because he was too old or was not able to, or he was not even alive, which is still a possibility. If everything broke the exact right way and Bernie Sanders run and this time did all the right things that we said that we wanted him to do, and the establishment will come together to destroy, even if he did win, even if all those things happen exactly the way that we kind of fantasized about. And he did all the good things. He directly attacked the establishment and did all the things that we recommended, and it worked, and he won. We would see that same process play out. We'd say the same thing that happened with Jeremy Corbyn, the same thing that happened with Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. We would see the same thing if they didn't just get him with the fucking heart attack gun to begin with. However, I guess one final thing that I would say about that, though, is that if we would see the establishment just completely undermine Bernie's, even if that did happen, if everything happened the way we said, and Bernie won, and we did see this process play out, where the establishment came together to crush the movement, as we obviously know that they would, perhaps it would be just beneficial for more people to wake up to this reality about who is actually in charge here. To me, you should be already hip to that. We should have figured that out already by now, but perhaps that would be what it would take for people to really realize exactly the extent to which they have no control over making any of these fundamental changes. It'll be Hillary versus Trump, but they both win and rule from their own competing capitals. You, the voter, decide who you agree is actually president of America. Really, I talked about Bernie being the funniest outcome. Really, the funniest outcome would be Biden not running and Bernie and Hillary running. I think that would be, and I'm sorry, no matter what the chaos would be, we would have to support that. We would all have to support that. If there was another Bernie and Hillary campaign in 2024, that would just be, the content from that would just be too tremendous that we'd have to do it. We would have to support it. I'm sorry. Punished Bernie. There would be so many meltdowns. We may have to lay down our lives over it. Yeah. We need an actual party that is not the Democratic Party. Reforming that party is loser shit that will never galvanize the masses. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, Red Scary. I don't think reforming the party is possible, but I think maybe demonstrating how corrupt it is a possible outcome of that, even though I feel like that should be obvious to everybody already. If Hillary runs again, I'm leaving this godforsaken landmass. No, you're not, Red Scary. You're going to stay, and you're going to experience it with all of us. And you're going to call into this exact stream and talk about your feelings about it. You're talking yourself into this. It's going to be Alex Jones 2024 versus Joe Rogan. Maybe they'll change the rules to let Elon Musk run. Maybe that's a possible outcome as well. And no, I'm in all honesty, like, I'm not talking myself into it. I think I would, if everything happened the way these guys want, which I don't think it's going to, I would probably support it, and I would like to be interested to watch it play out. But I don't think I would have any illusions about that movement leading to like actually meaningfully challenging power structures in America in any way. Still withering, that's right. We are working hard to Elden Ring up all you voters to come and vote for 2024. Musk versus Bezos. We might as well just go with undo the whole fucking formality of the US government and just let's put all our cards on the table here. Anyway, this is something else that I wanted to talk about, right? Because this is, at one point, this is politically, this is how I felt really confident, I think, about this kind of being the avenue for change. You running these unapologetic progressives in these liberal parties like the Democratic Party or like the NDP. And, you keep doing that until you have enough of them. They can, set the policy agenda, right? Easy. When I started really, talking about this stuff often in 2018, I mean, this is, my main storyline that I was kind of interested in. And it's just now, that's what I mean. It's like we've seen the result of that now. And I think there's no greater indictment of this whole process than this story that came out yesterday. We've been talking about the Summit of the Americas and how, the absolute preposterous, ridiculous hypocrisy on the part of the U.S. government not inviting countries like Venezuela or Cuba or Honduras or Nicaragua because we're against dictators, while also inviting Jair Bolsonaro and the president of Colombia, and it's so nakedly hypocritical and ridiculous. And we've been talking about how exciting it is that President López Obrador in Mexico is like, no, we're not participating in this if you're not inviting these countries. Like, it's bullshit, and how significant that is. And we looked at the Biden administration's response to that yesterday from the administration saying, well, we don't support dictators, and how preposterous that is. And then I see this letter comes out. This was yesterday. It came out, June 8th. A group of 15 Democratic House members send this open letter addressed to Secretary Blinken. We write to express our profound concern about the current surge of journalistic killings in Mexico and the increasingly hostile environment that the free press faces in the country. And criticizing AMLO, who has made this really important stand. President Lopez Obrador has made clear that the safety of journalists and protection of the free press is not a priority for his administration. In fact, President Lopez Obrador has frequently denigrated and intimidated independent journalists. Signed by 14 members of the Progressive Caucus in the United States Congress, including Ilhan Omar, who is like, Ilhan Omar is like the, like, probably could be described as like the most left-wing progressive member of the Democratic Party, who often has taken like bold progressive foreign policy stances as well. And like, this is the result. This is the result of of entryism in the United States government. I mean, this is just what's always going to happen each and every time. You put your hopes into people that are going to pull the party left with these strong foreign policy positions, and they can't even take the basic stance of having like basic fundamental solidarity with like Latin, Central, and South American countries that are starting to stand up to this bullying on the part of the United States government. Like, that's just the most basic fucking litmus test for being a progressive member of Congress, to like push your own government when they're engaging in this kind of fucking rank hypocrisy. And the president of Mexico points this out in an extremely bold move. The fact that the president of Mexico is like doing this and calling this out on a global stage like this, and rather than saying like, yes, it is hypocritical for us not to be inviting Venezuela and Nicaragua and Honduras and Cuba into the Summit of the Americas, that is ridiculous and ridiculous and hypocritical. Why are we doing this? Rather than taking this basic step, this basic easy step, which is the lowest possible bar, literally like the most progressive members of Congress with what we would normally describe as like the most left-wing foreign policy positions, standing with the Biden administration and criticizing Mexico over its treatment of journalists. And it's just like, fucking, like, how much more evidence do you need that this process is just never going to yield the same results? And, you know, it just goes back to what I was saying on election night as well. I saw Omar's pro-Ukraine tweet, and that doomed me. And I saw in last year, Ilhan Omar retweeted a tweet that referenced China being like Nazi Germany because of its treatment of Muslims in Xinjiang. So that's three strikes pretty much. Yeah, while they all supported by a person to a person, they all supported sending billions and billions of dollars in worth of arms to Ukraine. That's going God knows where. That's ending up in Idlib and all these other places. That's getting in the hand of these neo-Nazi fascist militias. That's going to probably be used to commit terrorist attacks against civilians for fucking decades. Every single one of them signed on to make sure Ukraine had those arms. And then you have Omar in this situation also coming to the defense of the Biden administration and the U.S. government against this kind of accusation of hypocrisy by the president of Mexico. And it gets back, they're all on board the Taiwan train as well. And AOC has talked about Tibet also. Like there is no like dissident Chinese group that these folks won't immediately coddle up to. And it gets back to what I was saying about the NDP on the night of the election, the night of the Ontario election. It's the same thing. It's why I can't get on board with this like progressive plan to infiltrate and take over the NDP. Not only do I think this is like a not a worthwhile endeavor, or a vehicle to put in all this energy and organizational effort into, that will take way too long to yield actual results into a party that has no interest in pursuing any of these policies. But even these people that are progressive that want to pull the NDP, for example, in a more progressive direction, they all have these same dog shit foreign policy views. And they all supported, they all have supported this like new Cold War, and they've all tried to get to the liberals right on this kind of new Cold War saber rattling. So even the people that are trying to take over the NDP and make it more socialist and pull it in this left-wing direction, they all agree with the same fucking foreign policy consensus. just from the left. And it's like, then, yeah, that makes me not exactly want to care all that much about this whole process, when even if you manage to wrestle controls away of the NDP to this more progressive movement, you still are going to perpetuate the exact same fucking foreign policy disasters. But this is just, I mean, it's just such a basic litmus test. It's such a basic litmus test to show solidarity with Cuba. The Cuba thing is enraging in and of itself, because it's literally like, this is you're going to the right of President Obama. If you're not just like trying to do what you can to normalize relationships with Cuba, and criticizing the Biden administration for not inviting them to the Summit of the Americas, you're literally to Obama's right. That's how much you fucked up. And you're supposed to be the left-wing progressive members of Congress that has these like left-wing anti-imperialist foreign policy views. And you're to Obama's right on normalizing relations with these Latin American countries. You've got the Biden administration simultaneously trying to work with the actual Venezuelan government to get more oil to market, while simultaneously not recognizing them as legitimate and recognizing some random fucking guy as the president. And what is the squad, or what are these progressive members of Congress doing to say anything about that hypocrisy? No, they're siding with the Biden administration on this. Back in the Obama years, it really felt like the Cuba scares were really dropping. It's kind of why those stoked up the fires of Red Scare Cuba is right now. And that was the thing when Biden was elected. You have, Biden, the idea of Biden versus Trump. That was one possible thing. We all know Biden will be a disaster. Maybe, just maybe though, which makes sense because he was the vice president, maybe he'll at least go back to the Iran nuclear deal like that was negotiated under the Obama administration. And maybe he'll go back to normalizing relations with Cuba, which was happening under the Obama administration while he was vice president. Maybe just on that level, he'll go back to those two Obama-era foreign policy decisions. Literally the two good foreign policy decisions from the entire Obama administration, which was a fucking barbaric, disastrous, blood-drenched foreign policy for 8 years. The two good things they managed to accomplish in that time: normalizing relations with Cuba and the Iran nuclear deal. Maybe they'll just go back to that, and that has not worked out as well. They can't even do that. Can't even pass that basic bar. And now you have the squad and the progressive members of Congress literally like to the right of the Obama administration on some of these issues. That's how fucking grim it is. I don't understand how anyone trusts the military intelligence infrastructure after the obvious and blatant lies about WMDs in Iraq. It's one of the things, I mean, you know, I write lump how much I've been complaining about this lately, how much it's like controversial to stand against these like obviously corrupt and awful national security and intelligence institutions. It should just be a no-brainer to just take anything that these people say and just assume that it's a lie. And people just really struggle with this still. Like, it just makes me feel so insane. I think whatever deep state wing was behind Obama's foreign policy has been completely obliterated by ghouls to the right of Kissinger. That's right. And when Kissinger complains about, points out correctly, frankly, America's role in instigating this war in Ukraine and their role in perpetuating it. And then people are complaining like, oh, these tanky anti-imperialists agree with Kissinger, while ignoring all the fucking ghouls that they're lining up alongside. And just being like, no, it's actually cool and normal for us to line up alongside these folks. But because we're to the right of Kissinger, and then you try to use that against other people. Is DSA International Committee still doing good work? Haven't checked in a while. Yeah, they do good work, and they're routinely attacked by people in DSA for taking these stances. You know, I'm glad they're doing it, but there's a lot of people in DSA that they view the International Committee as being like, threatening to them or threatening to their ability to be taken seriously on a mainstream. Yeah, I hope they keep going as well. Anyway, I just feel like the writing should be on the wall for like, I know that voting for some progressive politicians in this electoral system can have some meaningful impact in different communities, but I think just like overall, in terms of like changing these big trajectories, making these big fundamental changes in foreign policy or the economic system, it's just it's not. It will never happen. It's not going to happen. Like Obama's foreign policy basically was Kissinger-like, if you think about it. TPP trade relations, Iran nuclear deal, while relentlessly pursuing regime change against Libya and Syria to prop up Israel, and doing the whole pivot to Asia as well, which was another part of the disastrous element of the foreign policy. We want the pivot to Asia, increase the role of like the CIA in conducting these secret wars rather than these big invasions, big military invasions. It's pretty fucking grim, folks. It's pretty grim. Yeah, that's part of TPP. Yeah, okay. And so the TPP, and that was what was like, so that became so unpopular during the course of like them signing it that Trump ended up running against it, right? And that was one of the reasons Trump was popular, was because he was able to frame TPP as being another one of these big neoliberal trade deals. And it became kind of toxic in the Democratic Party. Even Clinton, I think, ended up having to run against it. The Africa push under Obama, developing AFRICOM, was also to combat China. Jesus Christ, what a fucking monstrous person this guy is. God damn. Oh, bummer. Oh, bummer indeed. Thanks, Obama. But yeah, that's why I'm not going to get excited about that. That's it. First of all, that's exactly why there is no like younger person that's going to like be able to run in Bernie's place to be able to like do anything. Like, oh, there's going to be an AOC run and that's going to bail everything out. Like, all of these people have just failed. Selling arms to Israel. Again, just not showing basic solidarity with countries suffering under imperialism in the Central and South America. Going exactly along with this foreign policy establishment when it comes to Xinjiang or Tibet or Hong Kong. They've just failed all these fucking tests. And yeah, they might talk about giving people health care or having a basic social safety net in the United States. And listen, for all the Americans watching, I hope you do get a better social safety net. I hope someone is elected at some point that does provide some kind of economic relief when it comes to healthcare or education or housing or anything like that. I think that would obviously be better for a lot of people in America. But overall, these people share the same foreign policy viewpoint when it comes to the United States and its role in the world as all of the worst fucking national security ghouls that exist in Washington and elsewhere. So, it'd be nice obviously for more Americans to get health care, but there's no one that has anything resembling a progressive foreign policy position. I mean, even Bernie has probably some of the best foreign policy of anyone, and he fails many of these tests as well. And you have Matt Duss, his foreign policy advisor, literally like, calling people Putin propagandists and everything for, trying to go against the whole, for questioning NATO. So the TPP, it wasn't pro-China, it was to facilitate. So Trump framed the TPP as being NAFTA with China, basically. It became completely toxic, and even Hillary had to run against it, even though Obama had negotiated it, which was that's a really coherent position, by the way, when you're running in the Democratic Party. It wasn't pro-China, it was to facilitate more trade between the U.S. and Pacific nations, to have them rely less on China, which would be crucial to ginning up any conflict against China. Like, they wanted to put this trade deal in place and then form some pretext to form a Pacific NATO, and they just failed completely because they couldn't get the domestic politics of it right. Just incredible. But they went ahead and formed the Pacific NATO anyways. And I'm not Malaysian flight pilled that was a failed false flag operation against China. I was looking into that the other day as well. I was looking into that Malaysian flight. It is kind of suspicious, that, isn't it? So, I don't know. To go back to the question that kicked off the discussion, I definitely think it would be funny if Bernie ran again. A lot of people would get really mad about it, which would be, the content would be great. From a content standpoint, it would be great. But no, I don't have much of I'm certainly not going to be out there like standing Bernie or anyone else in the Democratic Party or the political establishment in the US. I do think it would be a funny outcome, though, that I would be interested to see the result of. No, I am pilled. Yeah, okay. I think I understood that as well. I think I understood that, Red Scary. I really can't even wrap my mind around how fucking insane of a result it would be if things broke for a Bernie Hillary campaign in 2024. God, it's just, that would be that's the most chaos outcome. That's the most chaotic outcome. Does he give a reason? He gives a couple. The reason is that, like, Trump has this appeal with everyday folks, regardless of how the mean things Trump says. People remember getting checks under Trump, and they remember the economy being good under Trump, and now it's Biden and the economy is bad and they're not getting checks. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Bernie is still very popular because people do see Bernie as someone that they can trust, because he's not one of these he's not really a politician type, and he's kind of is a plain spoken person. That's what drew me to Bernie in the first place, and probably many of you as well. So it's just as simple as that. It's like that's exactly why the Democratic Party is not popular, because they've given up on any idea of this economic populism, and they refuse to fight for it. So we should put Bernie, who is popular, people like him, and he will fight for these popular economic policies rather than just give up as Joe Biden has. That's basically the reasoning. I don't know. It would be a funny outcome, definitely. Excuse me. Yes, I don't think the actual vessel matters much. Promise soak dem shit and people will vote for you. You know what? I think that's one of the lessons of Trudeau, frankly. You know, the reason Trudeau was elected in 2015 was because he was the most progressive candidate in the race. That's the reality. He's not governed like that, obviously, because he's not a progressive, and he's this kind of like dynastic neoliberal rich guy. But that's the reason he became popular. And even though he was part of a political dynasty, he was still such an unknown figure and so outside the sort of liberal party establishment that he did kind of manage to pull off that political outsider thing. So he promised progressive policies, and he was kind of a political outsider. It's not that really resonates with people. I remember 3 elections ago when he promised that would be the last election with first past the post. I remember very well. Again, I was basically a one-issue voter in 2015, and I was primarily voting for a government that would get rid of first past the post in Canada. That was the main thing that I was kind of focused on at that time. I think it'd be funny to make Brandon run a primary again. That is true, yeah. That is definitely true. Like I said, if he's still standing... Rob was focused on weed legalization with singular intensity. I was focused on it. And again, that was one thing. In that election, Trudeau said, we're going to legalize marijuana. And rather than the NDP, Tom Mulcair at that time, rather than saying like, yeah, actually, we're going to do that too, but we're going to do it in an even more progressive way, and we're going to expunge records, and we're going to do it and even take it even farther. Instead, Tom Mulcair was like, ha ha ha, he just wants to smoke weed. He's like a young guy, and like made fun of him for that. And lo and behold, young people voted for Trudeau because he said he's going to do it, and he did. And that was the one thing he actually accomplished. And lo and behold, people kind of enjoy that. Yeah, legal weed and election reform. It would be like, it's, again, I've been saying this about Joe Biden for a long time as well. Literally all Joe Biden has to do, he doesn't even need to forgive student debt. They're complaining endlessly about young people that are checking out in the low popularity. Literally, Joe Biden just has to say legal marijuana. And that would probably be enough to avoid losing the next election. They could probably do everything that they're doing right now, but say, we're going to legalize marijuana, and they would probably win. And they won't do it. They can't do it. They can't even do that. They can't do it. That's the amazing thing. Even that. That's truly incredible to me. It literally would be enough if legalized weed and just chunked off a percentage of student debt for people. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's it. He's afraid of the for-profit prison guys getting mad at him. And as I pointed out endlessly, Joe Biden is a fucking right-wing conservative. And he doesn't agree with legalizing marijuana because he thinks people that use marijuana should go to jail. And it doesn't matter if that's going to be the thing that makes him win. He thinks it's a gateway drug, and that's the end of it. They won't be doing it. People got really mad at this. People got really mad at this one back in the day. It wasn't back in the day. It was a few years ago now. So you have Dinesh D'Souza saying. So I'm making fun of Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh D'Souza. There's a great shift underway. We are all 70 million of us and our families going to make our exit out of liberal institutions of indoctrination. I guess this is right after the election. This means schools, universities, media, entertainment. This won't happen overnight, but it's happening already. We're out of here. I say you should leave the country entirely. And this guy, Kevin. Kevin, some kind of like neoliberal podcast troll guy. Says, yes, you should move to Montreal. I said, no. He said, hey, Rob, how many MAGAs do you think like this tweet? Because after Biden was elected, I was like, okay, but seriously, he sucks, though. But I said, I don't care. He said, seems like you and Dinesh have a lot in common. And it's like, congratulations. Joe Biden is a right-wing conservative. You fucking played yourself. I'm smoking weed right now. Hell yeah, Maxie. We love it. I enjoy, like, sometimes, like, at the odd time, I'll have a little puff from my vape pen while I'm doing the stream. It is kind of a surreal experience, though, because every now and then, you know, I'm fine to do it. I like talking with you guys, and I can go on rants like I normally do. Every now and then, I have this little dissociative moment where I step outside myself right when I'm in the middle of saying something. It's kind of happening right now because I'm referencing it. And I see all the lights, and I see the camera, and I see myself on the screen, and I have just a moment of being like, oh boy, what's going on here? This is weird. What's happening? And then I kind of get back into the groove of it. It's very strange. It's a strange experience. Little pufferino. Little cheeky puff. I was just saying this the other day to someone. Joe Biden's current politics align with Republicans in the 80s because Democrats have been chasing them to the right since Reagan. Yeah. There's been some political continuity since 1980, and both parties have played their role in enacting the same set of policies, right? It's neoliberalism, right? You have a few differentiations between both parties, but overall you have this process of privatization, austerity, attack on public sector workers, unions, imperialism. I don't understand liberals. 2 Dem senators are against the Biden agenda because they love so much, yet any mention of ejecting them from their Senate seats has them aghast. It's really strange, isn't it? When you say, listen, the Democrats control the Senate. They control the House. They have the presidency. Why aren't they passing legislation? They got 50 votes, 50 Democrats. That's what you wanted. We need 50 Democrats so we can pass legislation. So everyone vote. And now these same people are just like, yeah, they have 48 reliable votes. You know full well that they only have 48 reliable votes, and that means they can't do anything. And you're like, but what are you not getting here? You understand that it's people in the Democratic Party that are just saying no and just not voting for the things that the party wants to do. You don't see a problem with that? You don't think that's a sort of an issue? The fact that you voted and gave them all this power and they seemingly just can't do anything about it, and they can't do anything about the people in their own party that are like saying this. That's just the end of the discussion, I guess. Yeah, and that's how it's always going to go. Irate lump. We need 60 Democrats in the Senate to pass legislation. We need 60 Democrats. And you get 60 Democrats. Well, we need 65. You know this. Now we need 75. That's the fucking grift. That's the game. It's called democracy, guys. The right gets in, moves the country right. The left gets in and normalizes the changes. The right gets in. It's the ratchet effect. Yeah. The ratchet effect. The old Charlie Brown and the football routine. If they had 100% of the vote, the parliamentarian or whatever the fuck would overrule them, or the Supreme Court would. The Supreme Court would, and you would say, well, why don't you use your power to, like, recall Supreme Court justices that are obviously corrupt, like Clarence Thomas or whoever. Or why don't you just expand the court? You have the power to expand the court. And they'll say, we can't do that. By the way, there was one opportunity to maybe do that. To maybe expand the court or do anything on the Supreme Court to avoid the right-wing takeover, which they just did not do. Biden happily says, I'm a capitalist, fund the police in most of his public speeches. Meanwhile, all these like police unions think the Democratic Party are like these like radical communists that want to take away all their funding. Regardless of any time Biden says it, no matter what they do. Campaigned on giving the cops more money. He constantly talks about giving them more money. People in the powerful people in the Democratic Party, that's all they ever say when the police come up. We got to keep funding them. And all these police unions think they're like blood-drinking pedos. Great job. Yeah, he's trying to have a cop kissing contest with the Republicans. Now, I love the cops more. Famously, that's a game that you can win. That's a game that you can win with conservatives. This is where
Is that
so that means so nothing. Kimmel is such a huge shill. What a mouthpiece. When again, and Kimmel will go on TV when a bunch of kids are murdered in a school. Kimmel will go on TV and cry about it on TV and talk about the need for everyone to come together and have some kind of come to some decision or resolve this constant murder somehow. And then Joe Biden's on the show. He's like, yeah, we'll just work with Mitch McConnell, Jack. And it's like, that's all you got. Mitch has literally said they do everything possible to deny a Democratic president another Supreme Court nomination, but okay. Yeah, and he meant that as well. When he says things, he means it. And when he said we're going to do everything we can to avoid the Democrats ever passing any legislation or putting in any Supreme Court justice, he was 100% serious, and he did mean that. And somehow Biden still thinks that they can work with these guys on something. Kimmel actually yells in Biden's face at one point, also awkwardly says, let's go to a break, when Biden was doing his usual rambling. I haven't seen the whole clip. Is there anything more interesting in this? It's just when they'll even get frustrated with the lack of action. But when the cards are down and elections come, people like Jimmy Kimmel, even if they'll be completely frustrated by the lack of action, and they're frustrated to the point of fucking tears, they'll still line up and demand that people vote for the Democratic Party. He can work with them on the Democrats losing the next election. I can't watch 20 minutes of this, though. There's 0% chance we're watching 20 minutes of this interview of Joe Biden and Jimmy Kimmel. 0% chance. I would like to see Kimmel get frustrated at one point. Is there a timestamp on Kimmel pushing him on any of this stuff? I mean, Obamacare was supposed to be a first step towards having bigger, broader structural changes. In the campaign, Joe Biden said, no, I don't want to have Medicare for all, but we should talk about having a public option. Now we're going to include a public option, just like we kicked the can on back in 2009. We kicked the can on having a possible public option to lower insurance prices for people. The bare fucking minimum neoliberal solution. They haven't even done that. There has been no discussion of this whatsoever. More people have died of COVID under Biden than Trump. Biracial couples have been on TV since the 60s. Do you have anything else to offer us? We saw Star Trek. We saw Star Trek in the late 60s. Give me, it's fucking wild, man. Biracial commercials. It's amazing. This is the President of the United States. 2 Democratic senators just blocked the Build Back Better agenda, the Build Back Better framework that you literally campaigned on. Your own party. Nothing to do with Fox, nothing to do with the mean Republicans, nothing to do with clickbait journalism. Your own party has blocked your own agenda that you campaigned on. And he's just looking around and blaming everything else but the people in his own establishment. Remember, this man was elected because he was like, I'm going to work with everybody. I'm going to work with Republicans. I'm Mr. fucking deal maker. I'm Mr. Deal Maker over here. He can't even make deals with people in his party. What's the point of even having a political party if you can't whip votes in the political party and get people to vote for things that you need them to vote for? What's the fucking purpose? What's the point? And they're saying we need a few more votes. Literally, they won't be able to stop using that excuse until they get 60 votes in the Senate, which is not happening for the next 15 years. Like, if you've looked at the Senate math, there's maybe a few Senate seats they can flip. They're not winning another 12 Senate seats. They're going to lose the Senate. That is happening right now. That's happening in November. The idea that they would pick up more seats enough to actually make a difference, like to overcome the people in their own party that are blocking this agenda. It's just complete fantasy land bullshit. Jesus. Yeah, and here's what the Democratic Party's doing. Thank you for the link. Who was that? TJ Borg. Here's what else, again, what the progressives in the Democratic Party are doing. While economic crisis is on the horizon, while Roe v. Wade, while abortion rights are about to be limited for like women and others that need abortions all around the country, the most feminist person allegedly in the Democratic Party, this is what they're doing. They're fucking hawking crypto scams to people.
Fidelity, the largest
with corrupt Republicans
manager in the country, announced that they were going to offer Bitcoin to users or to consumers. Companies have to choose to allow their employees to put Bitcoin in their 401ks.
Hawking crypto scams.
Came out and said this is a terrible idea. What do you think?
I think the Labor Department's wrong. I think it's a wonderful idea. It should be part of a diversified asset allocation, and it should be on the end of the spectrum of a store of value. Obviously, if you have a fully diversified asset allocation, you have some assets that you want to produce income in the short run. You also want some assets that are just a store
blockchain
of
retirement,
value.
Jack.
And I think that's where Bitcoin really shines. I think it's some of the hardest money that's ever been created in the world. And for that reason, it belongs as a slice of a diversified asset allocation for retirement funds.
Senator Gillibrand, you agree, disagree?
No, I agree.
Jesus Christ, are you serious? The price of Bitcoin has plummeted by over 50% since last November. It is in no way a safe place to stash your retirement. I mean, even CNBC is putting up graphics showing crypto crashing as Senator Loomis is describing Bitcoin as the hardest money that's ever been created. Are these people stupid as shit or just corrupt? Sadly, that's a question that is always relevant here in Pisstown. At least in Loomis's case, we know the answer. It's just pure graft. Disclosed last year that she purchased $100,000 in Bitcoin.
Jail. What's so fucking hard about this? That's corruption. No pyramid schemes, only friendship triangles. Thank you. I don't know, folks. I mean, it's just, it certainly does seem like 2024, there will be a lot of, it's going to be an interesting year, definitely, considering the confluence of all these different things, the confluence of the climate crisis getting even worse. It's probably going to be happening while the economy is in fucking free fall. I don't know. Maybe it will be a potent mix for something actually good to happen. I'm certainly not going to count on it, though. It's actually very simple. Ape holders can use multiple slurp juices on a single ape. So if you have one Astro ape and 3 slurp juices, you can create 3 new apes. Tonight's Slurp Juice Mint event is essentially a minting event for both lab monkeys and special forces. This isn't a left or right issue, it's a coin issue. I don't know, gang. Okay, plenty more stuff to talk about here. Plenty more stuff to talk about. I got to take a moment. I am now... Hold on a sec here. We are almost 2 hours into the stream. I'm at 0 subs. And, you know, again, I've talked about this repeatedly. I feel very uncomfortable always having to do this and to talk about this. We are at 0 subs, though, so I do have to take a moment to try and encourage people to subscribe to this channel. And I hope as well, I felt a little bad yesterday because I was like, I hope no one got the impression that I was like trying to guilt trip anyone, because I was talking about possibly scaling back the show a little bit. I really, really wasn't. When I talk about this, I was not trying to like guilt trip anyone. Really, it's actually me that feels guilty, because, you know, I really have to rely on people's generosity in the
you can count on me
in this community to keep this thing going. And it's starting to become like kind of stressful for me to always have to do this. So
you can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
There is a possibility that I am going to start working on some video content for Rebel HQ
to talk you through all this.
Rebel HQ, the TYT page. I might start making some video content for them. We're going to see how that works, in which case I may scale back the show a little bit. Maybe just one day.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob.
Maybe just one day. Like maybe just do 4 days a week instead of 5 days. You know, nothing crazy. But it would make it so it's not quite the same level of like of feeling like I'm
you've just become,
you know, negging you all to donate to the show all the time. Oh my goodness gracious. But Rob, you should simply let the content speak for itself instead of spending 90% of the broadcast shilling. I'm very smart. Thank you, Cradbabes. And Jesus Christ, thank you very much. Let me give some thank yous here. Sam, thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, John, for the gifted sub. Thank you so much to Comrade Social Distancing for the 2 gifted subs as well. And thank you so much to Squatch Drew for the 10 gifted subs. Squatch, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let me just do the sound drop.
Wow. Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Thank you very much, Squatch Drew. I really appreciate that. The 10 gifted subs. Thank you. Wait. So y'all are pro TYT? Or I'm not like pro or anti TYT. There's people that in TYT that I don't mind. There's people that I like a lot that work with TYT. My friend Jordan Yule is a TYT guy. Our friend Bleep Blomp Ben, she does TYT content. I think there's plenty of people that have great values that are part of that network. And, you know, I would never like change my analysis or like change what I do if I was ever going to be involved in that in any way. More, I think it's actually a good opportunity to bring people with different values to become part of that network to reach a bigger audience. Rob's going, no, I'm not going to TYT, but I might start making some video content for the Rebel HQ YouTube page. In which case, I would probably, at least a little tiny bit, scale back a little bit this show to make it a little bit easier on people in the community that have to support the show. And so begins Rob. Michael Tracy asked Griff to the right. TYT is the first step. No, never. That's not going to happen. And again, I wouldn't change anything that I say or any of my values that I have if I was ever to dabble in that kind of thing. Anyway, I think they're fine domestically, but they're cucked when it comes to international, as most progressives in the West are. I mean, it seems like the vast majority of people. But that's exactly why I think it would be good to have people that have a different sort of analysis as being part of that network. Not a TYT fan generally, but Ben does great stuff there, and it's exposing it to a big audience. Yeah. That's kind of my viewpoint of it. I wouldn't, temper any of my viewpoints or anything like that if I was ever going to be part of that. Yeah, Rebel HQ is periphery. I doubt Cenk even watches those, but Ben's doing a great job DPRK pilling and China pilling people. That's right. Anyway, I don't even know if this is happening. It's a possibility. It is a possibility, but we're going to see. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. It is a possibility, though. So that's a possibility. So what's going to happen with this show definitely is, I think over the course of this summer, I probably will go for at least a couple of weeks to more of like a summer schedule. There's going to be, I will be on a little vacation for like a week at least. And then I'll probably be in a more relaxed schedule for some of the summer while I'm doing stuff with my family and also, doing this stream. So then after that period is over, we'll see whether I go back to the 5-day-a-week thing or if I do some kind of a hybrid schedule, 3 days a week or 4 days a week. We're going to see. It's going to depend. I love doing this stream every single day. But again, I want to do it in a way that's sustainable and where I don't feel so much like I'm leaning so hard on people in this community who have to support it, because it makes me feel weird and alienated to do this. On that level, though, we do have 45 seconds left. We're almost at level 5 of this hype train, folks. While I'm talking about how weird and alienating this is, constantly trying to encourage people to support this channel, I also have to do it at the same time.
You've just become an elite
member. Look at that, Schmitty McDougal. Thank you very much. Look at that, Schmitty McDougal. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Very much appreciated. So all that is to say, when it comes to the schedule of this show, whether it stays as a 5-day-a-week thing, if it goes to 4 or 3, we're gonna see. We're gonna see after the summer. There'll be kind of a relaxed summer schedule, and then we'll see what it goes back to. Then, ideally, what I would like is to really grow the community so it doesn't feel to the same extent like I'm leaning on the same people to support the channel, and then it feels a little, less exploitative. Like I can't help but feel that way. I can't help but feel like kind of weird and wrong sometimes doing this, even though you all understand the dynamic and you understand that creating the content takes time and yada yada. I know everyone gets this, but it's still really weird feeling to be relying on people like this to fund this stuff. So ideally, I would just like the community to grow to a point where I don't feel that's to the same extent that I'm like leaning on people so heavily. So we'll see what happens in the summer, whether we stick with the 5-day-a-week schedule. I've really enjoyed doing the show 5 days a week. I really love it, and I would actually like to continue because I enjoy doing it. But we'll just see. We'll see how things play out this summer and see how things go with the community. Rob, what's those dragon dollars? I mean, it's weird. It's a weird feeling having to do this. It's kind of bizarre. I don't want to say I'm hitting a wall because I've only been doing this like a year and a half, and I know people that have been doing streaming, 5-6 years. But it is kind of fucked up, just day in, day out, resetting the little number at the beginning of every day. Like people were so generous on my birthday, and it was such a great feeling, and it was like painful. It was painful on the next stream to hit the button to reset everything back to zero. But like that's what you have to fucking do on this platform every day. Reset back to zero every day. Try to grind back to it. It's fucking weird. I totally understand how you'd like to be able to function without supporters funding you, and for what it's worth, I think it's a fine way to do it once you're dedicating this much time to the streams. Well, thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, and of course, I like again the generosity that Comrade Social Distancing and Squatch Drew and Schmitty McDougal and all of you, you are who support this show. It's incredibly humbling to me, and it means a lot to me. That's exactly why I just feel it's weird to day in day out try and go back to this. Now do it with your asshole attached. Well, eventually that's my phase 3, Marina. Marina, you've been encouraging me to go down this path, so perhaps I should think about it. We appreciate you, Robin. Appreciate the community. Yeah, well, I mean, it means a lot, Squatch. It means a lot that people like you and others that have supported the channel so much. I get the impression that it's been meaningful somehow to have this community, and like that's the ultimate reward for me. Yes, it's good to be able to pay rent and get groceries and etc. Obviously, but that's a big part of it is realizing that it's meaningful, and for some of you, that's the ultimate kind of amazing thing about doing this. Anyway, that's why I'm hoping this TYT thing does work out, because it would be nice to be able to not feel quite the same level of pressure when it comes to this part of it, this part of the whole thing. GG Alan Dulles, thanks for continuing your gift sub from Gen X Bushy. For some, I don't know why that doesn't trigger a alert or anything, but then I'll update the sub goal manually. Thank you to GG Alan Dulles. Got one more minute of the hype train. If anyone else has got a Prime sub, or if anyone else wants to support the channel, get the emotes, join the Discord server, join the community. Got one more minute. Get those wonderful hype train emotes. It was actually, it was my birthday the other day, obviously. It's still technically my birthday week as well. Sorry, I'm in the wrong camera angle. Here I am. It's still technically my birthday week as well, if you don't remember that. I did buy myself a little present, though. I've never really got Bluetooth headphones. I prefer to use the cord, but it's just I'm getting frustrated all the time. All the cords always end up getting fucked up, and you walk around in your pocket,
You're gonna have
and
good
it gets
old Rob to
messed up
through all this.
TRRS Sankara left FL1 candy liquor.
It gets messed up. Only one thing works. It's annoying. It gets jostled and fucked up. So I went and got some Sony, some Bluetooth earbuds.
You can count
here.
on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hep birthday.
I got some of these Sony Bluetooth earbuds, some fancy ones. I don't really generally like these in-ear ones like this. I've never really liked these. They don't often stay in my ears, but I did try these out earlier, and they do kind of stay in. They sound pretty good. It's nice to not have to worry about the cable and everything. The sound is not amazing, but it's pretty decent. I think probably in terms of sound, I prefer the over-the-ear ones, but sometimes for walking around and everything, those are annoying to wear. These are Sony. I don't know what the actual model is. These are Sony ones, which Sony makes generally pretty affordable electronic stuff that works fairly well. They were like $100, like a little over $100. They also don't stay in my ears long term. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. I think my canal is smaller or something. I have some over-ear BT headphones that look like old Walkman headphones. Yeah, well, so these are kind of neat. I'm looking forward to using these. I hope they actually stay in my ear. From when I was trying it out today, it seemed great. It seemed pretty good. Earth to Skelly, thank you very much for the 4 months of Tier 1. I really appreciate that, Earth to Skelly. And thanks, Blueberry, also. The 18 months of Tier 1. Hep birthday. Happy birthday, says Blueberry. Thank you very much, folks. And thanks for indulging me when I engage with these meta discussions about subs and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the way that I have to like process this whole aspect of doing this. You know, it's just a weird feeling. Like, and Marina was outlining it as well. Said Americans really devalue the arts and creative fields and keep it so that only people from rich families get to be creatives. Never feel bad for having to pay bills when you're entertaining us. Well, thanks you, Marina. I appreciate that. And you shouldn't feel bad either for entertaining other folks. But I do appreciate that. Thank you. You know, I don't feel guilty with the process of earning a living from doing this show, which does take a lot of work and energy and effort and research and all that stuff. What I feel bad about is having to lean on like sort of what I feel like I'm leaning on like specific individuals. It just feels weird. It just feels weird to like come on here and every day do these segments where I'm, you know, encouraging people to part with their hard-earned cash to support this. You know, it's just weird. It's just a weird feeling. I have some of the Jabra ones for listening while running or in the gym. They fit great and seem sweat-proof, so I like them. The Jabra ones. Yeah. I feel a little bit of regret that I should have gotten ones with like a clip. Or I like the Android headphones, like with the little sort of loop, the wire loop that kind of stays in your ear. I'm a little worried these ones are not going to be able to stay in my ear, but I'll see how it goes. Okay? What should I do? Should I take a break? Why don't I just keep going? Why not? I had my lunch already. I have a little bit less time today because I've got to go get my kid in an hour about, and I have a podcast at 4:30. Beats by Dre Pro Wireless have a loop around the ear, and they're so perfect. I got them because my AirPods went down the sink once. I took a look at those. Honestly, I for some reason I just don't really want to buy Beats by Dre products. It's part of it. For some reason. I think because it's just like they make decent products, but have like kind of overpriced, and because they've capitalized on this kind of brand popularity. I don't like the branding and the overhyping. Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking though of because I said I have a podcast at 4:30. I got to do the Insurgents podcast then at 4:30. Last night I appeared on the Soundtracker podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with the Soundtracker podcast, but I appeared on the show to talk about one of my favorite movies from the 90s and favorite movie soundtracks, the So I Married an Axe Murderer soundtrack. And I was a little bit dreading, like, am I going to be able to talk about the So I Married an Axe Murderer soundtrack for like 90 minutes on a podcast? I started kind of dreading it ahead of time, but it was a really good conversation. It was a very funny episode. It was a funny conversation. I really enjoyed talking about the film and about the soundtrack with Eric from Soundtracker. It's going to be really good. It's coming out next Friday. And now I've been listening to the So I Married an Axe Murderer soundtrack again, which has some fucking great songs on it. It's got two versions of There She Goes by both the Laws, who did the original, and the Boo Radleys, who did a cover of it a few years later. Both of those versions are on there. Two Princes, of course, by Spin Doctors. I've been listening to this Toad the Wet Sprocket song that's on there, which is it's such an early 90s alt-rock song. It's so of that time, but also it's kind of catchy, and I keep listening to it. Toad the Wet Sprocket. It's a pretty good soundtrack. There's some good stuff on there. And of course, in the film, they have Saturday Night by by Bay City Rollers, which is a fucking amazing song. There's a cover of it on the album, the actual soundtrack as a cover version, which isn't as good, but is still worthwhile listening to. Toad the Wet Sprocket, really not a good band name, it's true. I don't think the Laws were the first of that song. No, they were the originals. The Laws did the original, the Boo Radleys did a cover, and then Sixpence None the Richer did a cover like 10 years later. But There She Goes is really like I mentioned this in the podcast, and I'm going to encourage everyone to listen to it next Friday when it comes out, but really as close as you can possibly get to a perfect pop song, I would say. Just phenomenal stuff. The soundtrack is quintessentially 90s. It's so quintessentially early 90s. And the reason I suggested talking about it too was that, you know, the film came out in 93. I probably saw it in 94 or 95. And it was right when I was like I was probably 12 years old. It was right when I was kind of going into this preteen time. It was one of the first like rock albums that I had. You know, I was listening more to like kid-oriented stuff and Weird Al prior to that. And the So I Married an Axe Murderer soundtrack was like me as a preteen starting to be like, oh, I'm listening to like cool older people music now. It triggers this very specific nostalgia center in my brain to think about the So I Married an Axe Murderer, the film and the soundtrack. Because it was right at that exact moment in my life that I was listening to that. That's why I recommended to talk about it on this podcast. It was a really good conversation though. It's really entertaining. I think you're going to like it. You know what? Maybe will do just a very, very brief interlude, just so I can go get a glass of water or something. Okay? I'll go get a glass of water. We got more footage from the Summit of the Americas and other stuff to talk about. So don't go anywhere. I'm really just going for a couple minutes. All right? I'm just going for a couple minutes. And remember, tomorrow, Benjamin Norton. Coming on the show tomorrow to talk about the Summit of the Americas. Okay, so don't go anywhere. Brief interlude. Brief interlude, and we're going to be right back. This looks like it's a little... I don't want to mess around with this. I don't want to be too violent or anything.
Honest contemplation of the past and the present forces me...
Okay, I'll be back soon.
Many of you are like me. I've always felt that I've met my responsibilities as an American citizen rather well. And yet, honest contemplation of the past and the present forces me to confess that there may have been some things that I've overlooked, as perhaps have you. It must be quite apparent by this time to any thinking individual that the people of our country and people of other countries all over the world are coming to face a moment of grave decision, a time when we will choose the course of our future. The choice lies between two opposing ideologies. On the one side, socialist communism, vesting total power over the individual within the state. On the other side, democratic capitalism, advocating a people's government and granting to the individual certain rights and freedoms. Freedom of thought, speech, freedom of worship, the right of free enterprise, free assembly, and many other rights and freedoms. Now, it would seem inconceivable to me that any thinking person would voluntarily choose socialist communism, inasmuch as in so doing he divests himself of all individual rights and subjects himself completely to the dictates and the will of whatever individuals may be in control of the state from time to time. To me, that's like signing a blank check and handing it to a stranger, without any right of cancellation should it fall into the wrong hand. And yet, in just a few short years, the proponents of socialist communism have succeeded in bringing under their influence or control nearly 40% of the world's people. How has this been accomplished? It's with the fervent hope that together we might find an answer to that question that I ask you to remain with us here for a little while, to look, to listen, and to think.
You are watching a student riot in Caracas, Venezuela, protesting the visit of a vice president of the United States. This mob was incited and led by known communists. Moscow to Montevideo. This communist-led student riot in Montevideo, Uruguay, is protesting the visit of a president of the United States. Moscow to Tokyo. Japanese students rioting in Tokyo, inflamed and led by communists, protesting the Japanese-American peace treaty. Moscow to San Francisco. These are American students in San Francisco, led by known communists. They are protesting the House Committee on Un-American Activities. This crisis for Americans is vividly highlighted by the communist accent on youth.
May I present our program moderator, Mr. William J. Teague, Vice President of Pepperdine College of Los Angeles.
Ladies and gentlemen, this series, Crisis for Americans, is dedicated to you and to the freedoms for which our country stands. This is not a propaganda program. What we show you is based upon facts presented by governmental agencies. These facts, closely studied and analyzed, present a clear pattern upon which the masterminds of Soviet socialist communism build their case for dividing and conquering the world. The youthful mind, eager, quickly stimulated, and idealistically imaginative, is vulnerable to these things. In many cases, the responses are completely emotional rather than intellectual. The result, such demonstrations as we have just witnessed. Let's look further and see how the communists seize every opportunity to achieve their goals.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
This is not propaganda.
The slaying of Patrice Lumumba set off more communist-incited student riots like this in Cairo, Egypt. At a Kremlin reception for supposed non-communist neutral Premier Nasser, Khrushchev stated, quote, "We are willing to do everything in order to further the complete liberation of colonial independent countries," unquote. Moscow to Belgrade. In Tito's supposed non-Soviet communist neutral Yugoslavia, this student writes, and Khrushchev said, quote, "In this world today, there is a fierce struggle of two ideologies, the socialist and the bourgeois. And in this struggle, there can be no neutrals." Moscow to Paris. Here another communist-incited student riot, and Khrushchev declared, quote, We do not want
Unelectable
war,
airwaves.
but we do not
Matt,
renounce
thanks for the
class
10 months
warfare.
of Tier 1. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Imagine living in one of these crazy propagandized countries.
Moscow,
Just imagine.
Cuba.
Terrifying.
Another proud accomplishment of communism. In Stalin's words, quote, Lenin never regarded the Republic of Soviets as an end in itself. To him, it was always a link needed to facilitate the victory of the working people of the world over capitalism.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Moscow to New York.
Yep.
The United Nations. This happened. Why? Let us ponder the words of Lenin, one of the founders of communism. Quote, it is possible to conquer the more powerful enemy by skillfully taking advantage of every antagonism between the various groups or types, by taking advantage of every opportunity of gaining a mass ally. Those who do not understand this fail to understand even a grain of Marxism. Youth will decide the issue of the entire struggle, both student youth and still more the working class youth.
Is this Russian disinformation?
Is, quote, in our struggle for world domination, America will fall like a ripe plum without a shot being fired. These are the teachings of Lenin, quote, at the basis of communist morality lies the struggle for the consolidation and consummation
Where's the
of
problem?
communism. That also is the basis of communist training, education, and tuition. Stalin, furthering the Marxist-Lenin world domination theme, reminded the communist youth of the world, and I quote, an internationalist is he who is ready to defend the USSR, because the USSR is the base of the world revolutionary movement, unquote. Here is another quote from Stalin, quote, a revolution
That's
which
right.
has been victorious in one country must regard itself as a means for hastening the victory of the proletariat in all countries. Khrushchev is doing all he can to bury us and achieve in his time the communist world domination goal. On March 21st, 1961, Mr. K told the Soviet people, quote,
Loser.
we shall be happy when the people
Loser
of all
shit.
countries stand under the banner of Marxism and Leninism, and the communist banner shall fly over the whole planet. Unquote.
You sold out, sir. You sold out. You blew it. You fucking blew it.
His militant ally, Chinese Communist Mao Zedong, is quoted in the official Peking People's Daily as saying that coexistence with capitalism is impossible, and that warfare with those forces is inevitable. It would appear that whether hot or cold, the war against our society continues unrelenting.
Khrushchev's happiness.
That's a really great vibe. I gotta do more of those. Gotta do more of those in the old interludes. It really works. You just throw that music on any of that old propaganda shit. It just works. It's really, I just really do enjoy watching these old propaganda clips as well. Also, just because it's incredible that we're still having these same conversations. That's the amazing thing. You go back to the 50s and this pro-capitalist propaganda from the 50s, this early Red Scare propaganda, and every single thing that they promised about how capitalism was going to bring prosperity and democratic freedoms, it's the same grift since way back, right? You'll have that personal individual liberty. That's what they always fall back on. You have that personal freedom. Freedom to do what? All these promises have just failed to materialize. Deindustrialization, decline, prisons filled with people, invading other countries, mass murder, genocidal mass murder campaigns in other countries. Every single thing that they told us that was going to, the scary thing that was going to happen under socialism in this possible nightmare future ended up happening. And all of the promises that they made about capitalism's beauty, its democratic legitimacy and its personal freedom and all this shit, and shared prosperity. They literally said a people's government, a democratic capitalist people's government. That's literally the words they used. All these big government institutions captured by private interests, destroying the planet and in not doing anything about it because they've purchased the political system and they are chasing the profit motive all the way to the fucking devastation of humanity. Every single thing that they were saying in the 1950s and the post-war period has been proven incorrect. And yet all these people still are in power. The same people that believe all the same shit, they're still in power to this day. They're still making the same arguments to us to this day, despite all evidence to the contrary, all evidence that none of this shit was ever going to work in the way that they said it was going to. All of these promises have been broken. Nothing what they said was going to happen has materialized. And we're still doing the same. We're still having the same arguments. It's the same fucking freaks still in charge. We're still, when we propose socialism as the solution, they still say the same shit that they said in the 1950s. As we're headed to this total climate apocalypse, as our prisons are just overflowing with prisoners, predominantly or disproportionately black and brown and indigenous people. Rights being rolled back. It's just like it's so fucking depressing. That's why I kind of enjoy. It also makes me really mad watching this old propaganda stuff. Holy shit. Mid-juniors, are you actually like a flat earth guy? Is this what the politics tab is bringing us today? Planet D's nuts. The earth is not a ball. This is the takeaway. From everything that we just looked at, that's the takeaway from mid-JRS. That's the takeaway. Yeah, I'm actually a flat earther. Okay, there we go. Good stuff. You know, we're not going to like get back into this argument, but satellites exist, right? Like they have the ability to just put a camera pretty up high in the sky and just take a picture of the planet, right? There's many such pictures. Mustache Imperial says, what's your take on this University of Calgary study that just came out, which compiled posts from Twitter users about the war in Ukraine? Sure, I'd be happy to see this. Let's take a look. What's your take? What's your stance on it, Mustache Imperial? What do you make of it? Canada target of Russian disinformation with tweets linked to foreign powers. An analysis of over 6 million tweets and retweets, and where they originate from, has found that Canada is being targeted by Russia to influence public opinion here. The study by the University of Calgary's School of Public Policy found that huge numbers of tweets and retweets about the war in Ukraine can be traced back to Russia and China, with even more tweets expressing pro-Russian sentiment traced to the United States. Assistant Professor Jean-Christophe Boucher said in an interview that the Russian state apparatus is associated with many accounts tweeting in Canada and is influencing posts that are retweeted, liked, or repeated by different accounts again and again. I think my main concern is that how our entire media and political establishment is captured by the Western state propaganda. I'm not really so concerned. This is my takeaway from this. I don't know about you. I'm not really concerned about any of this, like these Russian disinformation ops. What I'm concerned about are NATO disinformation ops. I'm concerned with like mainstream media in the United States and Canada working hand in hand with the weapons manufacturing companies, the national security establishment, and the intelligence community, and the rest of corporate America to sell a very specific vision, a pro-Western, pro-NATO, pro-America agenda to people that live in this society. And frankly, I don't think it's surprising that Russia or any other government would take some time to try and put some resources into providing a countervailing narrative to that. For me, we live in a bubble of intense propaganda. We're propagandized to constantly by the media and by our political class in the West. That's more the propaganda that I'm concerned with than this Russian disinformation effort to talk about war in Ukraine or anything else. Our entire political class and media class in the West has been devoted for now 10 years to arming and funding and promoting a civil war in eastern Ukraine for the previous 10 years that led to this conflict. And our entire media establishment right now is devoted to ensuring that anyone that's out there right now pointing this out, or talking about the very legitimate security concerns that Russia has when Canada and the US are arming and funding these extremist groups in eastern Ukraine, and training them as well in an effort to have a proxy war with Russia, is a fairly legitimate security concern. So our entire propaganda institutions here in the West have been 100% devoted to framing this whole war as a 100%, this was unprovoked, nothing, there's no history, there's no context, there's no, the previous 10 years don't matter, everything that happened in the last 100 days, and that's when it started, and it's 100% manufacturing this consent to continue to arm and fund these militia groups to fight this proxy war. Anyone suggesting that we should have a peaceful solution, or that maybe who's bringing up this context, or who's talking about negotiating, is being framed as being this secret Russian disinformation agent. I think that's actually a really dangerous political climate. I'm more concerned about that, personally, than this Russian disinformation campaign. I'm more concerned about the constant barrage of Western propaganda, pro-NATO, pro-America, pro-military establishment, that we're constantly inundated with. That's I think the main problem here, not whatever random Russian troll or Chinese troll accounts that are sharing alternative perspectives to that. Can we watch a couple minutes here? No, I'm not watching your flat Earth bullshit. No, Jesus Christ! What? Can you not see that we're talking about other stuff? Mid JRS. Can you not, whatever your name is, Mid RJS, can you not see that we're talking about other stuff here? I don't want to do your flat Earth thing. Go peddle that shit somewhere else, man. Or whoever you are. We have enough moon pilling going on in the chat. We don't need to extend further down that fucking train. And by the way, usually when you dig into the real flat Earth stuff, you find, as with many other conspiracies, it ends up being this kind of like Christian fascist anti-Semitic thing. So I would probably examine that as well if you want to take a look at that. That's based more around, you have this like fundamental need, which is ultimate copium, to believe that the Earth is some kind of sacred, amazing place that the whole universe revolves around, rather than just being one small part of a larger universe that completely dwarfs everything that our whole planet and our whole culture and everything. My God, the politics tab is so wild. Anyway, that was the answer to your question. Mustache Imperial about this Russian disinformation campaign. I'm more concerned with Western disinformation and trying to deprogram people from the Western mindset, which we're completely inundated with at all times. It would be interesting that you make Benjamin aware tomorrow that he's among the top Russian influenced according to this study. I know he's part of the whole Russian disinformation map. I'm sure he's well aware of that. And in fact, it's good that you brought that up, because that brings up something else that I wanted to talk about on the stream today, which is Paul Mason. Paul Mason, the pro-NATO British leftist.
The size of the account.
The friendship triangle is 2D. The Earth is not.
Thank you, Metal Dipshit. Thank you for the 300 friend card. That's exactly right. It's a 2-dimensional shape, the friendship triangle. It's not 3-dimensional. The Earth, though, is spherical. Or not spherical, but it's, I don't know, it's one of those bumpy, it's like a big round bumpy thing. I don't know what you call that. It's not flat, though. Give me a fucking break. That's so dumb. It's funny how the so-called Russian disinformation seems to line up more with reality than Western media consensus. It's almost as if this shite is projection. In all seriousness, Sam, that's, I think, the ultimate way to look at this is when we hear Western media talking about Russian disinformation. What that actually means is what everyone else in the rest of the world that's not the West understands about these situations. Right? It has nothing to do with Russia. This is how everyone in the global South sees these incidents, sees the news playing out. It's the non-Western viewpoint. That's basically what it is, right? This is what people around the world believe about these geopolitical affairs. Oblate spheroid, that's the one. It's chubbier at the equator. I know the feeling. We've all been there. But this is where this like Russian disinformation shit leads. This Paul Mason thing this man is losing it. Oh, fuck me. What did I just do? Paul Mason, this man is losing it. In May, Paul Mason called for unspecified state action against Grey Zone News. Emails leaked to Grey Zone now expose his goals, working with the UK state and Intel cutouts for a campaign of relentless deplatforming against GZ and the UK, against Grey Zone and the UK anti-war left. This is ultimately where the stuff about Russian disinformation is going. And that's why they have these like disinformation experts that liberals are trotting out there to try and make sure anyone that's promoting this Russian disinformation, which is once again any information that goes outside the Western narrative, and they want to make sure that no one is allowed to express these viewpoints. And as I've talked about before, if you do believe in free speech, as most of these fucking people claim to do, you should be able to take a look at the Russian perspective of the war in Ukraine or anything else and say to yourself, I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but I believe in people having the freedom to express these ideas. And if people want to express the idea that the war in Ukraine is NATO's fault, that's offensive and disgusting to me, but it should be part of our free speech and our freedom of the press. But these liberals who complain about this, who talk about freedom of speech, or conservatives as well, they're all coming together to ensure that anyone who shares this viewpoint, this Russian disinformation, and this is being pushed primarily by liberals, by the way, is now just like deplatformed from social media. You're taken off PayPal, taken off Twitch, no Twitter, no way to like have an income, no way to do anything. There's an effort that's coming together for people to just completely engage in this kind of censorship campaign, and now Paul Mason is being found out to be kind of right at the center of it. Being one of the few members of the anti-imperial left in the UK, this one feels personal. Yeah, no, exactly. And we're going to get into this. It's fucking crazy. And here's the interesting part of the leaked emails, because we don't need to get onto these. By the way, and Paul Mason is saying the exact same thing that the Democratic Party said when their leaked emails all dropped, which is this like, these were hacked by Russia. I can't confirm or deny. It may be altered. It may not be, which is just code for they're real and legitimate, but they were hacked. And I'm just suggesting that they might be altered to cast doubt on it when people reprint it. That's what that means. So he has confirmed that these emails were hacked and they are like, these are legitimate. And this has come up over the last couple of days when we've talked about these like hipster, edgy, left-wing media organizations such as Vice, such as Bellingcat, who sometimes do very good journalism covering domestic extremism in the United States, but have taken funding from CIA cutouts such as the NED, which means they're automatically not trustworthy when it comes to reporting that they do on these foreign policy issues, whether it's Syria or Libya or Korea or Cuba or any, like there's no foreign policy issue that these organizations like Bellingcat won't take the side of the United States State Department, and always, of course, out of their kind of wormy justifications of like being anti-state or anti-dictator or pro-democracy or whatever. And these are funded by the NED. And there's been people on YouTube and other social media, people that are on Twitch, people that are part of the sort of same communities that some of us are in, who have talked about this idea that criticizing Bellingcat's foreign funding from the NED and suggesting that their reporting is informed by their connection with this CIA cutout is some kind of conspiracy or some kind of Russian conspiracy, right? That's how the people in Bellingcat frame this as well. It's like a Russian conspiracy to suggest that just because we take money from the NED, that informs our foreign policy views or anything like that. When in our coverage of Syria or Ukraine or any of these issues, right? It's amazing the way that this Russian propaganda is the excuse for any of the. It's this skeleton key for liberals. Oh, you lost an election to Donald Trump? Oh, that's because of Russian disinformation. Oh, you're Chrystia Freeland and people are pointing out that your grandfather, Michael Chomiak, was a fascist collaborator during the Holocaust. Oh, that's Russian disinformation too. Oh, our emails leaked and revealed all the internal workings of the fucking vampires that are in power in the Democratic Party. Oh, that's Russian disinformation. And now Paul Mason at the same time, it's the same thing. Oh, it's just all anytime anything is revealed about what our activities are privately, it's just this like Russian disinformation. They use that as this scapegoat to just squirm away from any accusation of being corrupt or any accusation of being imperialist or whatever it is. But here, so again, I've seen people, even people that I know and like and respect, suggest that criticizing Bellingcat in this way is like wrong or conspiratorial somehow. It's a left-wing conspiracy, as I think some people have put it. And again, even people that I like have made this suggestion that it's a left-wing conspiracy to suggest that Bellingcat is part of like a CIA op. And here you have in these emails from Paul Mason. Let's take a look at these. This is part of these emails. So he says, number 3, Gray Zone is not just publishing disinfo, it is doxing and exposing counter-disinfo actors, hence their attacks on Valent. There has been similar ops by others against British soft power institutions. This makes me believe the work should be done by white label organizations operating with firm InfoSec, Signal, Proton Mail, Clean Phones, just as Bellingcat get a steady stream of intel from Western agencies. I suspect the attacks on you and others are fed by Russian and Chinese intel, which will include not just hacking but electronic warfare and human. Just as Bellingcat get a steady stream of intel from Western agencies directly from Paul Mason's emails about this. While Paul Mason is engaged in this campaign of trying to work with elements within the national security state to target journalists and others that are sharing what he views as this pro-Russian propaganda or disinformation. And again, another one. Here's Paul Mason, May 6, 2022. Am keen to do this. Emma Bryan has some of it. Chloe Hakimanthu at BBC, plus the various think tanks. What it really also needs is intel service input by proxy, e.g. Bellingcat. As I've said time and time again, it doesn't matter to me how much you like the individuals that are involved in these organizations or whether they have done good journalism covering things that you do agree with, the domestic extremism and the right wing, and supporting embedding and supporting anti-fascist movements in the West. That doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. If they're taking money from the NED, as Bellingcat have openly admitted to do, as I pointed this out yesterday, they're not to be trusted, and it's not a conspiracy. It is not a left-wing conspiracy to point out that Bellingcat took funds from the NED and have these intelligence connections, which Paul Mason is fucking admitting himself in this email. And we will look again. We will look at this again. Again, not a conspiracy. Not a conspiracy. They have literally talked about taking money from the NED. And we cannot trust any journalistic organization, even if they've taken 1 cent from any of these kinds of institutions. And I do not think in any way that it should be controversial, let alone called a conspiracy, to suggest that organizations like Bellingcat are not trustworthy because they're funded by these CIA cutouts. Like, we literally know that's not some big mystery or some weird thing. We absolutely know exactly what the NED is and what it does and who it funds and why. It's not a conspiracy to point this out and to not trust reporting, especially when it comes to these foreign policy issues that these organizations do. But I have to look at, because the Mason has put together this like fucking map too, which is just absolutely wild. This is the article in Gray Zone. And again, I don't care what you have to say about Gray Zone, whether you like Gray Zone or you don't like it, or you think Gray Zone is Russian propaganda or whatever, or Russian conspiracy website. I don't care if you believe that or not. What they're publishing, these emails, which Mason himself has confirmed are legitimate. So it doesn't matter what you think of Gray Zone, or where these emails did come from, or who hacked Mason to get them. Regardless of all that, the emails are legitimate, and the Gray Zone is publishing them. Emma Bryant had a hilariously pathetic deflection on Twitter. I can't believe academics are tweeting this Russian-hacked conspiracy while also not denying the veracity of the correspondence. No, it's the same thing. I mean, it was the same thing, Sam. Remember in the Corbyn and Johnson election when Corbyn was like, I have proof here that the Conservative Party is talking to United States-based pharmaceutical and healthcare companies about privatizing the NHS. And rather than focusing on that detail, everyone fucking freaked out and was like, that's Russian. It's Russian hacked disinformation. Corbyn is doing Russian disinformation on the election. They're doing election interference. It was like amazing. He was ridiculed for waving the files. Yeah, amazing. Fucking amazing. Just fucking wonderful. I'm pleading and begging with people on the left to stop fucking promoting this. It's just like, it's unbelievably counterproductive, and it's literally contributing to a climate where people are going to crack down heavily on people's ability to share this kind of information, anything that they deem as this Russian disinformation campaign. This effort right now to lump everything that we don't like into that category, everything that runs counter to the relentless pro-Western narrative. That's what's happening right now. And if that process continues, like it's going to have disastrous impacts on our ability to talk about these things. And I hope everyone understands that when it comes to everything that's been happening, especially the last 100 days, I've made an extra effort to be Captain Nuance always when we talk about this. And if it's been frustrating for some people, or you think I'm turning into a lib, I hope you understand that I do it to cover my own ass and to try to do what I can to not be lumped into this category that ends up getting censored and silenced by the liberal disinformation experts that they want to root out this so-called Russian disinformation. I just found out the Russians hacked the scoreboard in Boston last night, causing it to falsely claim the Celtics won Game 3. That is actually true. That is actually true. So here's another one of these Mason emails. New tab. He said, okay, so he's talking to Emma Bryant. Yep, the far left rogue academics is who I'm after. There's a progression. White helmets, anti-Semitism was a scam, and now Bucha was a false flag. So yeah, he's pointing out both Syria, like the anti-imperialist that was reporting on Syria and talking about the Western role in arming and funding these extremists in Syria to fight the Syrian civil war. By the way, exactly word for word, exactly what we're doing in Ukraine and have been doing for the last 10 years also. And yeah, Mason was a big guy who ostensibly supported Jeremy Corbyn, but also promoted the anti-Semitism as smears at every step of the way, of course, which was the thing that was used very successfully to completely poison the whole Corbyn movement. And yeah, now he's talking about Russia and Ukraine. So he says, what I believe is happening is the emergence of a left anti-imperialist identity. And the danger is it will be attractive because liberalism doesn't know how to counter it. And that's true. They have no counter to it because this left anti-imperialist identity is quite often just discussing actual facts and real context to these situations and not just relentlessly parroting the pro-NATO, pro-Western viewpoint. That's the left anti-imperialist identity. Liberalism doesn't know how to counter it because they don't have any fucking answers to it. That's exactly why. That's exactly why they're trying to turn this into this Russian conspiracy so they can use the power of the state to remove these opinions because they don't have an actual answer to it. But I suspect they're actually about to launch a new party around Corbyn and Laura Pittock, which would make the whole thing much easier. I don't monitor the rogue academics much, but Emma's tipped me off to their current activities. The important political task is to quarantine their soft influencers and stigmatize the hard ideologists. Does this make sense? That's what Paul Mason is spending his time doing right now. Fucking snitch, who again doesn't believe in free speech, obviously. Literally just spending his time trying to snitch to the cops, the discourse cops. For people, because people are calling him correctly identifying him as a pro-NATO leftist, pro-EU liberal who's been operating in these leftist spaces. Unless Mason was targeted by NSO Group's Pegasus software, he most likely was tricked into giving up his password through phishing. I have no doubt. Just in the same way that whoever it was in the whatever ghoul in the Democratic Party that who was it? It was who's leaked emails? The Democratic Party ghoul who was like Hillary's campaign manager. That's probably the grossest part of it. They're aware of the bulk of reality, but explicitly agents of imperialism, knowing exactly what that entails for the global populace. Yeah. But it was the same thing. They'd go, oh, it's some dangerous... Yeah, John Podesta. Thank you, Sam. It's this dangerous Russian hacking, this dangerous Russian disinformation campaign. And it's literally some old man who doesn't have fucking two-step verification to his emails, literally leading the campaign, the billion-dollar campaign of the powerful neoliberal establishment. Doesn't even have the basic understanding of how email works, not give his password to whoever random like dick pill seller is coming in the junk mail to ask him for it or whatever it was. Just fucking humiliating, right? And I'm sure that's exactly what happened to Mason, just a big dumbass who gave his email to whatever scammer that got him on this. That has led to this whole thing in the first place. Here's this clip. And again, this is under pressure from Owen Jones and Michael Walker. And if Owen Jones, I think, is exposing you to this level, that's a really dangerous sign that you've fucked up royally. But explaining this basic, fundamental contradiction in his whole worldview, where he supports NATO and supports these Western alliances and pushes back against this kind of disinformation. Watch, this is Paul Mason, brilliant Paul Mason, while he tries to explain these contradictions to people.
Do you think that all Labour figures who support arming Saudi Arabia, who are on record supporting arming Saudi Arabia as it carpet bombs Yemen, I'm including people who've supported selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, like Luke Akers, who sits on the National Executive Committee, and I also mean dozens, and we're talking dozens of Labour MPs who voted in 2016. They defied the whip when Jeremy Corbyn put down a motion, or they can't remember, the motion was on arming Saudi Arabia. Do you think they should be kicked out of the Labour Party? If you support what? What? Oh, okay. Yemen is the biggest humanitarian crisis on earth.
So you do then, Owen. Are you saying Luke Akers should be kicked out of the Labour Party?
No, I'm not. You're the one who's saying people should be kicked out of the Labour Party. So I am making a difference. What's the difference? Yemen's the worst humanitarian crisis on earth. They are murdering children in buses with bombs from Britain.
Some understanding here. There are many differences that are containable within the Labour Party, but for me, the difference that says NATO is the aggressor.
So he wants to kick out. That's the basic point that, again, Owen Jones, noted tanky anti-imperialist Putin propagandist Owen Jones. The basic point: you're promoting people that say NATO is bad, promoting that they be kicked out of the Labour Party, but you don't support the same thing for people that promote and support Saudi Arabia while they engage in genocide against children and bomb buses and murder, engage in the worst humanitarian crisis in the entire world. This is how Owen Jones is exposing this basic contradiction.
In the Ukraine crisis is not containable because Russia is waging a genocidal war.
Right. Okay. Why?
So that's my politics. That's my opinion. I think that's quite close to leadership.
Why is the life of a Yemeni so much lower than that of a Ukrainian?
Go again. So, Owen, this is the Putin talking point.
No,
supporting Ukraine is racist.
How dare you?
Supporting Ukraine is racist.
It's the Putin talking point, mate. Owen, this is. Are you having a laugh, mate? This is the Putin talking point. It's whataboutism, innit? Oi, you what, mate? That's whataboutism, innit? Owen Jones. He's being exposed by Owen Jones. Owen Jones, Putin propagandist. Putin propagandist. Unbelievable.
Anyone who supports Ukraine is raising Ukraine above brown people. That's the Putin talking point. And I won't have it.
I support Ukraine's just war of liberation against Russian aggression. I support arming Ukraine.
This is the state of this is the compatible left.
On Yemen.
So he pushes back on being called a Putin propagandist by ensuring everyone understands that he does indeed support NATO and support arming these Ukrainian militias. This is the fucking state of everything. Oh, don't worry, I'm not a Putin propagandist. Believe me, I'm just as interested in arming these militias in eastern Ukraine as anyone else is. Don't worry about that. That's where the mainstream left is in the UK and elsewhere.
Well, I've been to a Yemeni refugee camp. I've met Yemeni refugee children who drew pictures of their homes being bombed.
So you were asking me, what's the difference? There is no difference between the life of a Ukrainian and there's no difference.
So I'm asking you, why don't you support booting out Labour MPs who support arming a head chopping, a dictatorship that beheads people like myself?
This is who you're being exposed by.
Brutalizes women, that exports international extremism and carpet bombs Yemen. Why are those people in the broad church of the Labour Party legitimate political actors and the people you're describing in Ukraine aren't? Why?
He has got no fucking answer. That's Putin propaganda. That's Putin propaganda, innit? So this is the amazing thing. Okay, this is the amazing thing. And once again, I don't care about your opinion about the gray zone. Okay? These emails are Mason has confirmed that these emails are legitimate and the gray zone is publishing them. And Mason is the one, he's literally trying to go after them and make sure that the state limits their ability to operate in any way. So Khan and Mason collude to form anti-gray zone coalition and shatter Corbynite left. On April 30th of this year, Paul Mason emailed Amil Khan, making clear he was keen to help deplatform the gray zone. He attached a bizarrely constructed dynamic map of the left pro-Putin infosphere that resembled a spider's web, with a mess of arrows linking the names of members of parliament, media outlets, activists, causes, and British minority communities. The barely coherent, racially tinged chart connected to the Russian government, the Russian state broadcaster RT, the People's Republic of China, and Beijing-based tech millionaire financier Roy Singham to the Muslim community, young networked left, and black community. Through a series of leftist outlets and UK Labour figures, no evidence was provided to support Mason's linkages. And at the center of the chart is Jeremy Corbyn, someone who Mason ostensibly supported. Is a fucking liar. Look at this, though. This is amazing. This is what our liberals are doing now. They're putting this kind of shit together. But, I mean, and we should laugh at it, but you're right, human person, that this is how this stuff starts. And this is the thing that I'm concerned about, is that this kind of campaign is going to pick up steam with establishment liberals. Yeah, Charlie Day ranting in front of a string-covered board.gif. It's the exact same thing. So you got China. Here's China. Through China, you got Roy Singham. Roy Singham going to Code Pink. No Cold War. No to NATO Network. Vijay Prashad. Progressive International. More lines. P and JP. I don't know what that is. I think that's a British grocery store. Stop the War. Fiona Edwards. Zara Sultana is a Labour MP. Novara. The Muslim Community. The Young Networked Left. The Labour Left. Trade unions. He's literally just put together this chart to snitch on essentially every single person to his left involved in any kind of media organization that remotely questions the foreign policy establishment, the national security establishment. Supporting Corbyn is the equivalent of Robert Evans attacking the cops or far-right militias. That's a good point, Matt. You could say the same thing with Bernie. A lot of people gain credibility by supporting these movements, and then they use that credibility to kind of sheepdog people into the Democratic establishment or the liberal establishment, or go off in these crazy directions. I hope somewhere someone has me on a chart like this. I'm sure I'm on a couple of charts. I'm positive I am. Libs should not have access to MS Paint. It's really an amazing situation, but I think that the stuff from Bellingcat from his emails is so interesting as well, considering how we've been talking about that lately, and how again there's been people on the left suggesting that it's a conspiracy to criticize Bellingcat or to talk about Bellingcat's NED funding. Play the JFK music over you reading the chart. I'm too low energy, James. I can't. I'm too low energy for that bit. I have to go soon. Oh, so that's what's going on with Paul Mason. You know what? I did have more to talk about with the Summit of the Americas, but considering the fact that I have to go fairly soon, and we've got Benjamin Norton coming on tomorrow, let's just talk. I'll gather up more of the content that's been coming out from that, and we can devote the whole day Friday to talking about the Summit of the Americas and the People's Summit and all that stuff. We'll punt that to tomorrow. Paul Mason, though, he's really trying to become the George Orwell of his time. And it's just loser shit. It's just loser stuff. There's this whole journalistic enterprise to talk about, take anyone spreading these kind of narratives and lump them into this foreign influence op. This snitch journalism that doesn't deal with any of the facts. Because again, they don't have any answers. When you talk about Ukraine and you talk about NATO's undeniable role, the West's undeniable role, Canada and the United States and the UK, the undeniable role in provoking that conflict, perhaps deliberately, and I would argue deliberately, they don't have any answer to that because that's the reality of what happened. The only answer they have is to lump everything into this Russian disinformation pile and just try to avoid any of that culpability. And then there's this whole journalistic niche that has popped up now, especially over the last couple of years, of just this snitch journalism, of finding any journalist that is not towing the line, the Western foreign policy line, and trying to blame them and accuse them of being foreign agents and accuse them of being part of a propaganda network. It's fucking sickening. Just figuring out what to do here next. Imagine being a snitch in the year 2022. And that's like, just to go back to what started all this conversation, this question about, Russian disinformation and whether I'm concerned about the journalism that's being done and the research that's being done on these Russian disinformation ops and Chinese disinformation ops. What I'm concerned with, which is the massive propaganda bubble, the most highly sophisticated, advanced propaganda bubble ever devised by humanity that we all live in, and how we're all inundated with this pro-Western, pro-NATO, pro-America propaganda from cradle to grave every moment of every day. That's what I'm concerned with. And literally what's being talked about as Russian disinformation is literally anything that's outside of that bubble. Anything that it contradicts that narrative about history or modern geopolitics in any way. That's what they call Russian disinformation. And as I pointed out, often what they're talking about with Russian disinformation is literally what the rest of the world believes about what the West is doing and what our intentions are and what our goals are. That's that's what it is. It's literally just the non-Western perspective. It's not even specifically to do with Russia. It's just the non-Western perspective. It's the non-Western propaganda version of events. Yeah, even if it's coming from Ukrainian legacy media or from Ukrainians themselves. Yeah, I mean, anyone that contradicts that narrative, even when we talk about listening to dissidents and listening to people from these oppressed groups and different communities. And as I've said before, when any of one from these countries comes out and says, actually, I disagree with that, and I think what you're saying is actually not accurate, we then take that person and say, like, well, no, that person doesn't count. Their viewpoint doesn't count. We only want to listen to Ukrainians when they're promoting a very specific viewpoint. We only want to listen to Africans when they're promoting a very specific viewpoint, or Chinese people or people from Xinjiang or whatever, only when they have a specific pro-Western viewpoint that reinforces the narratives that we tell ourselves about these countries. That's the only time their viewpoints are legitimate in any way. And it's very important that we listen to Chinese dissidents, but do we want to listen to the 800 million members of the Chinese Communist Party that are actually happy with how things are? No, we don't want to talk to them. We only want to hear about these specific dissidents that have a specific viewpoint that happens to match up exactly with our foreign policy establishment. Heading to work. Hope you all have a great day. Even Flat Earth Guy. Thank you, Squatch, and thanks again for the support. 3:25. Okay, what am I doing here? So I've got to do a podcast at 4:30. Because sometimes I leave and come back and do the stream and then continue the podcast. You know what? I just think I'm going to end the stream early today. I got to go pick up my kid. I'm going to take some time before I have to do this podcast at 4:30 to watch my kid and everything like that. So I'm going to end the stream early today. I'm going to end the stream early. You still have, what's the friendship triangle? It's a...
You've just become an elite member of the friendship triangle.
Oh my gosh, Gen X Bushy, thanks so much for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you very, very much, Gen X Bushy. Very much appreciated, thank you. What's the friendship triangle? I mean, I'm pretty sure you know, MacBay, you do have a 3-month subscriber badge, but it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to... Yeah, that was a good explanation. I mean, that's pretty much... Thank you. That pretty much does make sense. You know? It's a community of friends. It's 2-dimensional. It's triangle-shaped. You join the community by subscribing to the channel or gifting. You can move up and down in the friendship triangle depending on how many subscriptions you gift or, that kind of thing. You get access to the patented trickle-down clout system, which is a unique feature, which is not available elsewhere on this platform. And ultimately, what you get in return is more valuable than money, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of community, an alleviation from the relentless sense of alienation and isolation and atomization that we're all experiencing. That's what the friendship triangle is. And if you are a lurker, if you're just watching this, if the algorithm brought you here or whatever, I encourage you to join as well, because this is a huge opportunity for you. Fortune favors the bold, as they say. Thank you, Minuswell, for the Prime sub on that subject. Thank you very much, Minuswell. Fortune favors the bold, folks. And like you're not going to get ahead of life. You're not going to get ahead in life by not taking advantage of opportunities when they come their way. Opportunities to change your life. Right? You're not going to get ahead in life by playing it safe. You got to be bold. Goose cult is the only cult. Well, that's good, actually, because this is not a cult. It's actually specifically is one of the main things when you ask about the friendship triangle, is about what it isn't. And it is not
you can count
a cult.
On me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk
It's one of the main things about it, so that's good, actually. Plunger Man, thanks for the gifted sub. Very much appreciated, Plunger Man. Thank you. There is still time to hit the sub goal. I know I am leaving the stream early today. No pressure. We still got another minute or two before I'm out of here. And again, if you're a lurker and you've listened to this for the last couple of minutes, again, you don't get ahead in life by playing it safe. All right? When opportunities come along, you have to take them. Okay? And that's what you have to ask yourself. Are you bold?
You can count on me.
Are you bold and brave?
Talk you through all this.
Brave enough to recognize a big opportunity to change your life for the better when it presents itself to you? Or are you one of these guys, or girls, or non-binary folk that's just gonna let life pass you by? Oh, I don't want to take too many chances. I don't want to take too many risks. And you just let every little opportunity slip through your fingers, don't you? Well, it doesn't have to be this way. But the first step is acknowledging that and taking that step out into the unknown, which you can do by subscribing to the channel. Thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, for gifting sub to Quinn Better. I really appreciate that, Comrade Social Distancing. Really appreciate it.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through. Oh my gosh.
Moustache Imperial. Look at that. Thank you for the 4 gifted subs. Very kind of you. I really appreciate that. And thanks for getting me going on that rant about Russian disinformation. I had been planning to do that, to talk about that today, and you came along at just the right moment to push me into it. And here you are, getting us to the sub goal as well. What a wonderful contribution. Thank you very much, Moustache Imperial. Okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna raid our friend Kira Chats. Thanks so much everybody for watching today. I hope it was a good one. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, and once again tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. 2 p.m. Eastern, Benjamin Norden. Okay? Benjamin Norden, formerly of Grey Zone, which we just talked about a lot. But we're going to be talking a lot. We're talking all day tomorrow about the Summit for the Americas and the People's Summit. We're going to have Benjamin Norden. That's going to be really good. Make sure you tune into that tomorrow. That's 2 p.m. or 3 a.m. Pyongyang time. If you're on Pyongyang time, it's 3 a.m. Benjamin Norden will be appearing. Join the Discord as well. If you're new to the community, before I have to go, last thing, join the Discord, please. That's where the community kind of lives when the show is not on the air. A lot of great stuff going on in the Discord server. Movie nights, reading groups, multiple reading groups. Really wonderful community there. Join the Discord server. So, I have to go. I'm going to go pick up my kid. Thanks again, folks. See you tomorrow, noon Eastern, 1 a.m. Pyongyang time. Say hello to Kira Chats for me, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks again, folks. I love you. Goodbye.